2025. It seems like just yesterday it was 2024. We were doing the last podcast of 2024, and now here you are on the first podcast of 2025. You're like,
that's insane.
You're both the Reaper and the baby today.
I seriously, and I know like the last time I was on too was the last episode of 2024. Now it's the first of 2025.
Yep.
When we get to the end of 2025, if I'm on the last one, when I ask you like, hey, was I on the first one? You're like, yes, you were, and you were the one before that. Man, you good man.
Yes.
So, yes.
And then and then also all the ones in between. I didn't tell you that, but that's what happens. Is if you're on those, then you have to do all the ones in between as well. So
sequential. I hope you're used to my voice because you're about to hear a shit ton more of it.
Clean sweep. Welcome back, everybody, to the RageSelect podcast right here on RageSelect. I'm Jeff,
and I'm Blake.
Blake, when we start these shows, I usually talk about movies and like games and stuff that I watched and played and animes and
Please
stuff like
tell me
that.
You're like, I'm not really into video games anymore. I'm like, Jeff, it's kind of a problem. You kind of have a podcast.
Well, the thing is that I usually watch a movie. I usually try to find a movie to watch, and I watched 4 movies, and I didn't really have any strong feelings about any of them. At least not that like really. I don't know that I want to talk about here. Like I watched The Order, I watched Anora, I watched Blink twice, and I watched some really depressing movie with Cillian Murphy about how they made like unwed mothers into church slaves in Ireland in like the 1960s. Like,
yes, you're thinking of Red Eye with Cillian Murphy. Yes,
yes, that's definitely the one. But you know what? Here's what I will say. Here's what I'll say. I over the break played all the way from start to finish through Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and it was fucking amazing. It was probably in the top 5 games that I played last year. It was like the game I was wanting all of last year. It was just a good old fashioned like action, and there's a bunch of side quests, and you could do some stealth, and you could dress up like a dude, and you could throw an apple at a Nazi, and like you do the whip crack, like there's a button. Like I realized when you're in the Indiana Jones costume and you pull out, you have a gun, and it's like it takes forever to reload it, so you don't really want to use it. But one of the things you could do is you could shoot your gun, and then like if you hit the reload button, he just flips it around, and you just fucking wang somebody on the head with it. I was like, game, I think you and I are on the same page here. So
I'm not gonna lie, I've played a lot of that Indiana Jones game. I haven't beat it yet, but I've played a lot of games as well. And I gotta say, I didn't even realize that you could use the guns the other way. You know what I mean? Because I think I hit one button one time. I was like, okay, well, there's no shooting in this game from Indiana Jones. You just use the butt of the gun. It's a great little mechanic. Flip that sucker sideways and just fucking use it as a beating weapon.
Yeah, in fact, a few times like later on in the game where you have a bunch of people with guns, I was like, oh, I don't want to use this. Like, if I shoot this, every single person on the map is going to turn and start shooting me at the same time, and the guns are like a little anemic as far as they go. I thought I had a little bit of I felt like the very climax of the game, like the last fight that you have in the game, was like so, but everything else was so good that I was like, yeah, that's great. So, and I also feel like it's a few years back we had Marvel's Midnight Suns, and I feel like Indiana Jones: The Great Circle is going to kind of get put in that same thing where it wasn't in contention for people's game of the year or for like the Game Awards and for a lot of stuff last year because it came out so late, and then like because it was in 2024, I feel like a lot of times those games then get snubbed when it comes to the end of 2025 when they've got a whole new group of stuff, and the stuff that came out in December of last year that technically didn't get a chance just gets kind of passed over. Because honestly, like, I like Astrobot, but when I look at it, if I take the Elden Ring DLC out and some of the other stuff, like, Indiana Jones was probably the best like AAA new game that wasn't like a spin-off or a re-release or a remake or any of that stuff. It was probably the best. And the other thing is that it's a licensed game, and it was one of the best licensed games I've ever played. Like, if you asked me about licensed games, I would probably have put Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay was like my favorite for a long time. But like, this was on par with that. It had, all these really good mechanics from machine games. It had a lot of stealth, it had a lot of action, it had a lot of collectibles. The tomb puzzles were like mind-bending. There were a few towards the end where I was just like, I don't even know. I've got to just look it up. This is too...
Like Indiana Jones just looked this shit up back in the day too, right? Like he just had the Wikipedia back then, right? He found it.
Yep. So I thought it was absolutely incredible, and the fact that it's on Game Pass and it doesn't have any microtransactions, it doesn't have like a battle pass, it doesn't have any bullshit online stuff. It's just a good, solid, like 12 to 20 hour, depending on how many side quests you do. Because I 100% of the whole thing, and I was just like, yeah, man, this fucking rules. Troy Baker did a great job as Harrison Ford. Like, they had all the, the references to other stuff. It was a damn good time. And if you like Indiana Jones in any way, shape, or form,
even if you don't and you like action adventure games,
like if you like Wolfenstein games, I feel like you'd like it, because it's just got a lot of like sneaking and Nazi punching and stuff like that. It was really good. It was super, super duper good, and can't say enough good things about it. And so that's what I'll say. Indiana Jones. Like, I tell you what, hopefully it gets some recognition because the PS5 version comes out earlier this year. And I hope that like creates like a second buzz around it where people are like, oh, I heard this came for the Xbox and the PC, but like the Xbox doesn't really matter anymore. Well, I don't know. It may matter at some point in the future, but
it kind of reminds me, because like, I mean, we could do an entire podcast on why that game is so fun. There's just so many different elements. I think another thing that nobody talks about too is how funny it is. I was generally playing it and I was like laughing at a lot of what the characters were saying intentionally, right? Trying to get you to laugh.
Yep.
It doesn't. It is seriously like watching an Indiana Jones movie. And it hits it right on the head. I honestly just feel like Indiana Jones for me reminds me a lot of Arkham Asylum when it came out. It's almost like, they've had a lot of uphill battles to get through, like to have a good Indiana Jones game.
Yeah.
The last Indiana Jones game that was any good was a fucking LucasArts like side scroller, right? Like from the classic point and clicks.
Yeah.
So I think like it's always good to remember, because like I remember when the Infernal Machine came out or whatever on the N64, and it was a little different with that response, right? That reaction of like, yeah, it's a game, like it sucks. But I was very happy to see that Indiana Jones actually had a game, and it's worth playing. Hell, I mean, it might not even be a high bar to cross, but like it's better than 4 and 5. You know what I mean? Like you could consider it the fourth Indiana Jones movie. It's that good.
Yep.
So it's a great time. To kind of rival that, I've been playing a lot of games too. You'd be proud of me, because I have been playing Path of Exile 2, which is great. And I've gotten to the third act. But what I did in the meantime, as well as playing Indiana Jones, is I beat Shadow of Mordor. I actually played Shadow of Mordor because I had never played it.
Yeah.
And I got to experience the Nemesis system for the first time, which I thought was really cool.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
And it was awesome. I think we were playing a game one time and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if Lord of the Rings actually had like an Assassin's Creed? You're like, yeah, that exists. It's called Shadow of Mordor, my man. And I was like, what? I ended up like having it on my my Steam Deck. So I played that over the holidays. It was great. Had a lot of fun with it, and I think there's a sequel I might check out. So
the sequel has a problem in that it was built for microtransactions because they wanted you to buy the orcs out of like a store, and so it gets really, really grindy. Like the first 2/3 are fine, and then it's like you have to go through a series, like a gauntlet of increasingly harder things. Now I heard that because they shut down the store, that they like kind of just integrated all that stuff back into the game, and that it's actually fine. What I know is that I only got about 2/3 of the way through, and then I stopped. But like, which was weird because like when I played the first one, like I had been watching the first one's development when it came up, and they talked about the Nemesis system, and I was like, well, this is an E3 demo, but obviously like when you go to play the game,
be like that
it's not like that. And then it was totally like that, and I was like, holy shit, I have like really serious feelings about some of these orcs, and especially like when they kill you, and then like, because in a normal game it's like, okay, they killed you, game over, restart from checkpoint, but here it's like, no, now they move up and they're like even harder than they were before, and then like the ranks get filled back in with other guys, and you're like, ooh, I'm coming for you, I'm going to get you.
Imagine me like playing that game for the first time, and I mean, I'm paying attention to the story and all that, but when that occurs, I didn't realize what the Nemesis system was. So when I got killed by whatever stupid orc thing, and then I come back to him, and it has the audacity to be like, oh, you come back, I'm gonna kill you again. And I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, you're not supposed to remember between like deaths. You're just supposed to be a dumb AI thing. It was awesome.
We had a live stream a long time ago where we were playing that game, and like I got killed a few times by the same orc, and I don't remember what his name was, but we called him Snackbox. And then like I finally managed to go during that 2 hour,
Snackbox.
and I finally managed to kill Snackbox. But one of the things that could happen in that game is where I was like, "Yeah, fuck you, Snackbox," and then I was just like playing the game, and like 20 minutes later, he just walked into another fight that I was having and was like, "You thought you killed me, Ranger, but the Dark Lord has brought me back for revenge." And we were like, Snackbox!
What the? That's amazing. That's amazing. And there's so many great things, and it's unfortunate that they say it's not unfortunate. They trademarked the Nemesis system, which I'm not sure we're ever going to see in the same form. But, you know, the AI exists now, and we have some articles to kind of talk about that too. So
it would have been perfect for Batman. It would have been perfect for like that Arkham, not the Arkham game, but like the Gotham Knights game or whatever they made that had the Bat family in it. Because like with Batman, you would have been like, oh, how did that street thug beat up Batman?
Beat me down,
right? But like it would have been really cool with the other ones if like and then if like they moved up, they got like a costume and they became like a villain that was based on the thing that they killed you with, where they're like, aha, I'm the stabber now, Nightwing, ha. And like there was so much that you could have done with that, but the fact is they made this beautiful system, and then I've just never seen it again, and it's like, yeah,
it's like it got shelved to hell. It'd be cool. Like, hey, who's the biggest Batman villain of all time? I don't know. It depends on how you play and what you do, right? That would be sick. That would be so sick.
Yep, it would work perfectly. Well, I tell you what, we do have a lot of news to get through, but you said you also like watched a crap load of stuff. Do you want to mention anything else before you jump in?
Yeah, I do. So I've watched a lot of anime, and one of the animes that I actually watched front to back was Attack on Titan. Now, I had watched Attack on Titan for like the first few seasons and then just stopped. So you can imagine when I was able to go into it with no spoilers, which I thought was insane.
Yep.
Because, you know, and spoiler alert, if you're at all watching Attack on Titan or reading it and don't want to know spoilers, just stop listening for the next
don't go too deep. Just, you know, let's talk around it a little bit.
I will just say that the way that the characters and the main characters kind of delve into the heroes and villains, I'll say that, like how it just kind of turns it on its head, really shocked and surprised me to the point where like I had more respect for it. I think one of the things that I'm not annoyed by it happens in all animes, is that there's so much fucking lore.
Yeah.
I've been watching My Hero too. It's like, good lord, I don't remember any of these fucking characters, right? Like, take me back to the OG like main storyline. But I think at the end of the day, it's just I appreciated how dark that my Attack on Titan got, because I wanted to stay home with my kid the next day, which is what I did, because I had it off because we had 2 weeks off for work.
Yeah,
and I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna stay at home with my son. You know what I mean? I was just like, that show just makes me want to like stay at home.
It's funny because my not My Hero, for Attack on Titan, like I think that you and I both dropped off at the same point, where there was like this huge production delay after like the third or 3.5 season or whatever it was, and it was just like, well, this shit's never coming back, and everybody was crying all the time anyway. I'm tired of watching this guy cry and that guy cry and whatever. And then it comes back, and like, you know, it started with just like, I don't know, there's like these monsters, and we gotta go hack them up with our box cutters, our giant box cutters. And then because I was just like, but why do these like medieval people have a bunch of pneumatic like grappling hooks? How do they have the technology to be able to do any of this? And they never explain it, and it makes me mad. And then you keep watching, you're like, oh no, they totally explained it. And like, and then the explanation is completely mind-boggling, and then you start getting into like the lineages and like these powers and the secrets, and you're like, what?
It just feels like a giant drain. Like, you know, like how water collects in a drain, it starts to spiral downwards. The stories, both My Hero and Attack on Titan do that. It's like it speeds up, and you're like, oh my god, no, stop. Like it's intense. It's very intense.
I mean, it's the thing that every anime does, right? You go watch Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and it starts with just like, we're trying to figure out how to bring our mom back to life, and by the end, it's like, okay, now I am going to spoil Full Metal a little bit.
Yeah, you don't want to listen to that part.
But by the end, it's like, you know, hey, my my dad also happens to kind of be the devil, and the world is now at stake, I guess. Like, it's very...
And that little girl and her dog, too. We're going to kill them, too.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ.
That's why it's nice to watch Blue Lock, because it's just like, bam, we're gonna win this soccer game super hard.
Even or Dan, which is like, I want your nads.
Right.
And they try to bite your balls, right? Like,
I would be surprised if by the end of Dawn to Dawn, if they were just fighting the God. Like, it's
like
a lot
just
of
going to spiral up to that.
JRPGs and or anime series that just end with like, and then we had to go beat up God. So
they already have a talking cat, legitimately Persona 5, like legitimately Persona 5.
Well, okay, let's jump in here a little bit. So the real news, there was a very strange group of news, but then I ended up with a lot of it anyway. And the big thing that we're going to talk about kind of launching off here is CES, or the Consumer Electronics Show, was last week, and there was a lot of new stuff. But the big thing by far that was probably the biggest announcement was that NVIDIA came out and announced the 50 series GPUs and for desktops and laptops. Blake, you could attest. You went to go build a new computer, and I told you specifically, like, they're gonna announce these 50 series things in January. It was a terribly kept secret if I knew about it. I don't have like a fucking hat with the word press on the side of it. It was just all over the internet that this was gonna happen. So
my Christmas gift to you late is gonna be a shirt that says, "Yeah, you told me so." That's true, you did. But I think the big thing is, like, I feel confident in my purchase of a 40 card. I was gonna get a 30 series card, but thankfully you convinced me to jump into a 40 series. So regardless of the 50 series being announced, I would imagine they're going to be an arm and a leg, specifically with upcoming tariffs as well. It's going to be more expensive, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, we're just looking at that.
Perhaps. I mean, the thing is that we actually do have the pricing on it. We could just start off with that since you mentioned it. So there's going to be 4 different ones. There is the Geforce or RTX 5070, which is $550, 5070 Ti, $750, 5080, $1,000, and the 5090 is a whopping $2,000. Not just that, but there's also, I was looking at some of these little graphs over here, the 5090, like, put this comparison. I have a 4070 series. I have a 4070 Ti actually series card, and those take about 700 watts of power. You have to have a 700 watt power supply. The 5090 takes 1,000 watts of power. Like, one of the stories that I have here, liken that to, like, it would be like if you plugged in a belt sander and just turned it on and never turned it off. Like, that's the energy requirement to use the top series card here.
Man, everybody with a PSU under 1,000 watt right now is like, fuck.
Man, no, it's just that meme of, like, first time. Like, if you're dealing with high end GeForce cards, you've already got like a 1,500 watt power supply. But so yeah, that's the main thing. And then the like, some of the takeaways is that okay, so they said, and I mostly just read articles about this because I never like to watch these hour-long presentations, but they said that, like, the 5070 card, which is $550, is going to have, like, on-par performance with a 4090, which was, like $1,500 or something like that, or I don't remember the exact cost of it. So, like, there is let me put it another way. The 5070 Ti is $750. I bought a 4070 Ti last year for about $750.
It's about right.
It's got the same amount of like, it's got the same power draw, and it looks like you're going to get a pretty significant performance increase. Now, how that works, that's kind of the big story here. So I watched a lot of these, and the big thing here is that if you're not a fan of the way that modern video graphics have done this dance where we're using a lot of AI upsampling to generate frames, to generate resolution, you're not going to be happy, because basically NVIDIA has quintupled down on this. So, but there is some, like, good-ish news. So here's the thing. When you look over all this, the technical stuff here, there was, God, what do they call it? There's like there was an older version of DLSS 3 generation that was called, like, God, what was it called? It has a specific...
DLS Resurrection?
No, there's like 2 new things. So basically, the older versions had a slightly different algorithm that was used to generate frames, and this algorithm is what was causing like this kind of smeariness that sometimes you would see where things were moving, but you weren't exactly seeing all of the like fine details in them because they were being interpolated by AI. The thing is that NVIDIA has apparently come around, or they have they've created a new version of the way that this the image generation happens that is based on a lot of the feedback that they had from the previous versions and specifically the problems that people were seeing with those older versions. That is much better, and it seems like part of this is that what's the best way to describe this? The part of this is the fact that the frame rate is so much higher because it's generating more frames, that like there were a lot of interpolation problems that would come trying to generate from like frame 1 to frame 2 to frame 3 to frame 4, and then you would get this kind of like weird smeariness that you would see
with anything with technology. It's gonna kind of push the bounds of what's possible in a fashion of you're gonna see it. And I think this is the hardest user base to please. It is the tech aficionados who are noticing the tiniest tears. You're a person that will notice screen tears, and you will put a game down that's like, nope, I ain't playing it if it's running at this. I'm getting there, but I think that's the point of this shit is so specific now, to the point of I see AI and I see two different paths. I see they're going to take over the world and kill us, and hey, this is actually going to benefit what you're trying to do at scale, or what you're trying to do with a tool set of using the power at your fingertips. So
yeah, I mean, oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, to your point, I don't know if, because I wasn't until you explained to me what it was. I don't know if the overall audience, maybe the core audience that cares, actually understands it, because it's that my problem is that like, if you have a problem with DLSS and you're gonna not buy a 50 series card, I don't feel like that's a thing. I think people are just going to buy it because it's the next series, right? Like, it's the next step up.
Possibly. I don't know. I mean, I finally found it. Okay, so the old method was called CNN, and the new one is called Transformer, that does like higher quality AI interpolation. So I don't know. I'm really torn about this because on the one hand, like ray tracing, 4K and high frame rates all kind of came with this current generation, and I feel like there really wasn't a way to brute force a video card, even for the consoles. There wasn't a way to brute force a video rendering system that could do all of these things at the same time. Like we saw it on the PS5, or we see it in the current, the Xbox Series X and in the base PS5. Do you want ray tracing? Do you want a high frame rate? Like, you have to choose between the two because you can't have both. And because it's just too much. It's too many frames, like it's too many pixels, and a normal video card just brute force rendering cannot make that many things happen at the same time. So they had to come up with a shortcut, and it was this AI stuff. The thing is that, I mean, everything is now using this. And I'm a little conflicted about this because, like, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, they use AMD's FSR technology to do upsampling. That's why some games look like ass on them for no good reason.
Can you use an example of a game that looks like ass on that? An ass on that?
What's that?
Give me an example of a game that looks like ass. You know what I mean? Like, is there an example that we can point to that says this game had a problem?
Yeah,
that game is really well.
There was a game. Oh God, what was it? Immortals of Avium. Was that what it was called? There was like a first person shooter. Yeah, it was a first person shooter, and it was real like smeary and kind of like. It was like ostensibly a magical first-person shooter, but it never really ran. Like, I would want something to run like a real rock-solid Doom Eternal 60 frames per second, and I want it to be sharp, and I want it to be crisp. And there's a lot of obfuscation that happens where, like, Black Myth Wukong is another one that I was a little bit disappointed by, where it seemed like it was just using. Part of this is also Unreal's problem, because Unreal Engine 5, everybody started using it, and so everything kind of started looking similar-ish. Like, because I think in the past people used previous versions of Unreal and then they would take it out of the box and customize it, whereas Unreal has tried to put so many of their features directly in the box that people are just opening the box. They're using Lumen, they're using Nanite, they're using the Unreal character generator,
speed tree, stuff like that.
Yeah, and so that it all kind of ends up looking somewhat similar. Like, have you played a game on a console where you've seen like the hair on people has like this jaggedy, shimmery garbage to it? You're like, I wish this person was just bald because this is breaking my immersion every time they zoom up into this hair and it looks like total asshole. Like that's Unreal Engine 5 for me. And so on the one hand, I'm a little leery because the further, like it's been like 5 years that 6 years we've been in this generation. And it's like, if you guys weren't ready for ray tracing, I wish you wouldn't have done it. I wish it wouldn't have been like, well, Cyberpunk 2077 runs like balls because we're on the bleeding edge of this stuff. And maybe someday in 5 years, it'll look and run great once we have the hardware to back it up. But right now, it kind of runs and looks like ass. And I wish that the kind of future casting for a lot of this stuff had been a little bit more conservative of saying like, okay, let's just use ray tracing for liquid, for just water. Every time there's a lake, let's work really hard on getting water reflections to look right. And then once we've really got that nailed down, then we can move on to something different. But the fact that we tried to shove all this stuff in at the same time, I feel like has meant that a lot of this generation's, I mean, one of the things about Indiana Jones was that it runs on Doom. It's on the IdTech engine and it runs really well. And they use a basic ray tracing in that game so they didn't have to bake light mapping in, and it helped with their development because they didn't have to custom generate lighting for all these foliage areas and stuff, and it worked really well. Anyway.
Well, I was gonna say to that as well.
Yeah.
I was worried because I bought this new PC and I was at the minimum specs for the new Indiana Jones, like minimum specs, and I was like, "What the fuck?" It worked fine, and it's a lot of the future proofing of games that I feel like the bare bones is the power that we're using is really not well understood at this point. Where I feel like it will get a lot better. So this huge jump in, I think at the time of like the 2000s and the early 90s is all about like how much size you can get for like the decreasing of space, but now it's all about how you can use AI to upscale. I'm interested. I think it'll be even more so problematic that the system's going to start doing things that you think might be problematic because of the game, and it could just be an OS level issue now with other AI shit running in the background, right? Like there's kernel level issues are going to start popping up with this shit, and I think that's going to start hampering a lot of potential, like, I don't say it's hampering, but more so like it's going to start raising issues of like games and stuff. It's like, hey, like why doesn't this shit run well on Windows 11? Because it's also using AI for Copilot shit. You know what I mean? Like there's all of this level, like, kernel level stuff that can start getting in the way of stuff. So I'm going to be interested to see the next few years of gaming. It's going to be very, I think we're going to be moving away from consoles, and I think that the market is really going to get home at the handheld and the PC, because I think that's what I'm seeing the most is all this handheld stuff as well as the desktops.
It's possible. I mean, from my perspective, when I looked at this, it's funny because DLSS 4 multi-frame generation, transformer ray reconstruction and lighting and stuff like that with these incredibly high frame rates, it just occurred to me while you were describing it that I feel like in the 2020s, like when the 30 series cards first came onto the scene, it's like the last 3 generations of PC video cards haven't had, like, they've had some refinement to like what things look like, but in general I feel like they got an idea in the 30 series, and they've with the 50 series they finally managed to like make that idea like work pretty well.
Of life.
Like, yeah, that it's more about making the same thing, about refining this one technology, than it is about like, oh, look how much better this is. Like in some cases, they're even with some of the frame rate stuff, they're shooting for 240 FPS monitors with some of this stuff, and I'm like, bitch, there's like one of those and it costs like $3,000.
Yeah, like it's expensive. I think to your point, right, they're perfecting it and they have a theme with their cards. I mean, imagine trying to figure out as like an engineer going, you're going to have to make the latest and greatest. That's no longer going to be cutting edge enough. Now we got to figure out a theme or some reason why this is going to get better between the series of cards, because it's not just can you get bigger and better, it's how much can you actually develop and scale, which is crazy with technology, like in that sense. So
yeah. And then part of this as well was the fact that DLSS 4 is basically having even more generated, like pixels generated by the AI tensor cores as opposed to the actual onboard hardware. So like previously it was something like 2 or like what they have this little DLSS 2, 3 out of 4 pixels were generated by AI, and now DLSS 3, 7 out of 8 pixels, and then DLSS 4 is 15 out of 16 pixels. So like more and more of this is being generated by AI. Now, the thing is that I was a little bit skeptical about this, and I had some real issues with it, especially because that transformer technology is also coming to 40 series cards. Like it won't be quite as good, but that's one of the things that NVIDIA is able to do, is because it's just a change in the AI. If you have enough cores to support it, you can use that technology with older hardware because it's more of an implementation thing than it is a raw power thing. But I watch, there's a YouTube channel called Digital Foundry, that I should probably stop watching at some point, because they're the ones that got me counting pixels and looking for smeary artifacts and things like that.
They made you turn your nose up to any type of issue in games. You're like, I'm not going to play or have my time with these screen tears. No, thank you.
But they got a chance to sit down, and they didn't get any of the cards for themselves, but they did get a chance to sit down, and they got a chance to look at Cyberpunk running on the 5080 series cards. And one of the things that they do is, they really like zoomed in all the way to the pixels, and they showed a bunch of like, okay, here is this scene, here it is running on a 40 series card, and you can see here's the smeary ghostiness, here it is running on a 50 series card, and you could see that isn't there anymore. So the thing is, I trust them more than I trust like the NVIDIA people to tell me. Like I trust it more than what NVIDIA tells me. But like here, like if you look at this scene, you can see when they zoom in, look at the people here in the background of this scene in Cyberpunk, where on this side is a 40 series card, and you can see how there's like a lot of places where it kind of loses track, and they start to get like these little artifacts and smeariness on them, whereas it's all very sharp on the 50 series. So again, I don't know. Once a year I make like a big $700 purchase on a thing, and if the 50 series card can do better with the same power supply that I currently have, like it might be worth looking at. But I really wanted to get out in the wild, and I want to see a lot of people who are not the PR people for NVIDIA like
actually
test
get
it,
feedback, and get it in their hands
and tell me whether it's looking good. We had a couple other things. There was a little gameplay trailer for this game called Black State that we'd heard about a little while back, that was running on the DLSS 4, and this was very specifically just about like it's a bunch of shots of very shiny stuff that has full reflective, where you're seeing like light globes with the entire scene reflecting in a warped way inside of the globe. You're seeing like waxed floors where you can see the entire scene reflected in the marble and the floors.
How about the nipples on that statue, Jeff? God, it looks fantastic with RTX on.
Yeah, and so the thing is, again, I'm getting leerier. I'm still kind of a techno fetishist when it comes to this sort of thing, so I am kind of interested in like checking it out, and I think I would be interested, especially because RageSelect is my main job of being like, hey man, if I can get games to look this good and then show them to you guys looking this good, that's a benefit for me, and it's a benefit for you to be like, what does this game look like when it looks the best? And also, I really enjoy some of this stuff and having really high-res stuff. Also, then I could give my 4070 Ti to somebody who needs a new video card. But
if you're just like, hey, how am I supposed to visualize what they're talking about? Imagine yourself looking into a mirror. That mirror is extremely foggy, and you take like any type of window cleaner and clean it, and it becomes pristine. That's what this is doing. It's basically cleaning up like what you'd see like in reflections, and obviously we're talking about ray tracing, right? So it's pretty incredible to think like, hey, we're getting to the point where, I was playing a college football game, and my mother-in-law's like, is that real? And I was like, no, it's not real. Like it's to that point, and I still think we're getting to that. We're getting ever so close to the it's pretty much real life, you know. Like it's this stuff's pretty cool.
If this is the generation, again, I mostly just want to I need some confirmation that this isn't just a bait and switch, because there's nothing worse than when somebody is like, there's a thing, I'm sure this has happened to you before, Blake, where you're like, okay, I need this to happen, and the world is like, okay, if you buy this thing, if you buy this $1,000 thing, it will totally do what you're saying. You're like, are you sure? The world is like, yes. You're like, do you promise that it will do this? And you're like, yes. And then you get it home. You're like, okay, I spent my $1,000, and you open it up, you plug it in, and it's like, oh, it doesn't do what I wanted. And they're like, well, it does something like what you wanted. And also here's some mods that you can use. And you might need to open up the back of it and like do some light soldering, but then it'll do what you wanted. Like, that's not what I asked for. What I asked was whether it would do it out of the box.
You just described every Kickstarter.
Right, exactly.
It's just like, I'm buying this. I'm putting my money to fund this. Yeah. Okay, well, you're gonna get it. Oh, I can't wait. What you get is like, this is like a visualization of what you were gonna do, you know. Like, damn it.
So we'll see how that goes. That was the big thing from CES. We're running a little short on time, so I think we'll run down. There are a few other things. There was another thing. NVIDIA has another technology called ACE that they've used before, which is like a specific AI character technology. They showed an interesting demo. Okay, this was weird. They showed a demo of this game called Inzoi. It's a Sims game, and it showed one of the characters in the game with this like smart Zoi thing turned on that used the AI kind of like a Chat GPT thing, but more to like make decisions. I thought this was interesting because there was another thing that I skipped that was just like a computer that talks to you. But this was like, okay, we're using this language model to assign a series of personality traits to your sim, and then they're going to go do things based on like what they see around them, based on what happens around them. So none of it is the like, oh, talk to the computer and it'll talk back to you. It's more just like, oh, you're playing The Sims and this person will just do stuff. So, but when I watched this, I was like, is this what the Sims normally do? Is they walk around, and if they're a cook and they see food, they're just like, ooh, I'm a cook, I see food. But apparently people that play Sims style games they'll play them so hard that they can see the AI of what's making characters do stuff if they have specific traits, because they're so like, that's the game they play, and they play it really hard, and so they can see the matrix basically, right?
Well, sports players or people that play a lot of sports games that see a lot of the AI call it the script. Right?
Oh, okay.
Like, it's the script of the game, right? Like when you score a game in FIFA, a lot of times, depending on which version of the game you're playing, like if it's depending on the year release, the AI will absolutely score against you, no matter, even if you're like dominating the game. It's a part of the script of the AI to try to make the game closer, right? So this is kind of the similar. People are recognizing the AI doing its thing. It's too scripted for them. They want something completely different. That's random. And I'm assuming what you're talking about is they're kind of getting in the teeth of, hey, if I have a Sims that likes to do, like you're saying, cooking and is into shit, they're going to go to the cooking store randomly if you go to the mall, right? Like they're going to start making decisions based upon how you actually cultivated their personality, or how you're actually building that. I actually find this to be extremely interesting, and something that I think will make every replay value of those games new.
Well,
like,
also
there's endless amounts of ability.
Again, every time I see some dumb AI bullshit, I'm like, why don't you start with this? This is just taking what gamers think of as quote unquote AI and just making it more deeper and more unpredictable. And it's not like the character in the game has to then talk to you, has to have some kind of canned AI Chat GPT response. No. It's more just like, oh, they can now do stuff that I didn't see coming because they've kind of built into this other model. Now, I mean, whether that's like an efficient use of the horsepower of AI, okay, whatever. But like, that is, at least to me, a way of integrating it. It's a way of using AI to make a game better, as opposed to just jamming it into some game. Like Ubisoft a few years back had like a demo where it was like, oh, you're a freedom fighter, and the all the responses, and it's like you talked to the camera, and then it would go, and it would put in the large language model, and the character would talk back to you with their response, and it was never very good. Whereas I'm like, this is fine. Like if the bad guys in Indiana Jones act even more interesting and erratic because there's some kind of little spicy AI back there to just knock them out of their routine, that's great. That's something that I would be more than happy for. Also, Blake and I just have to say, this is a hobby horse of mine. God, I can't stay on this. We got too many stories. This character in this game, when they go to sleep, they get in their bed and they put covers over them. Not enough video games have people get in bed and actually get underneath the covers, and it fucking drives me crazy when the motherfuckers in Skyrim just go in and lay fully clothed in their bed when there's covers on the bed, and I'm like, you lazy ass motherfuckers, put some covers on your goddamn...
That meme of Leonardo DiCaprio doing the whole, like, I'm recognizing it and pointing at the screen. That's like you whenever a person goes into a bar and is like, I'll take a beer.
Right.
Yeah, the beer on tap. Like, just let's get the BEER. Pull that shit. It's the beer. Here you go. Like,
if you wanted to go to any bar in the world and ask for just like, yeah, I'll have a beer, and they'll be like, which one?
What the fuck are you talking
even
about?
The worst. Even TGI Fridays has like 4. They're gonna want to know which one you want.
They should just be like dealer's choice, and then they give you just like tap water. And like, technically, it's beer.
The thing that pisses me off even more than that, though, is just about everybody on all movies and TV shows, Blake, put still tap water in the coffee cup, because I can tell when a person is carrying an empty coffee cup. There's just something about being a human where you're carrying a cup and it's empty and you're a little bit more cavalier with it. And it's like, you don't have to put hot coffee in there. You don't even have to put a black liquid in there. Just put a little bit of water in there, because people carry a cup of fluid differently than they carry an empty fucking coffee cup. Also, when they put it down on their desk, it doesn't go clack because there's something in there to like not make the sound resonate.
Absorb the fucking sound.
Come on, just take a minute.
You're like, this is amateur hour. Amateur hour. How does this relate to the 50 series? Shut the fuck up and listen.
Yeah. All right. Quick lightning round before we finish up with CES. So we got, here's just a bunch of stuff that happened. AMD also announced RX 9070 series GPUs. These are going to be a little bit interesting. They also... potentially FSR 4 is going to be exclusive to these series, so FSR might be moving out from being something everybody can use, something you have to have an AMD card to use. Lenovo has another Steam handheld, the Legion Go S. The Acer Nitro Blaze 11.
God damn, this thing is a fucking beast.
You guys got to go look it up. It's an 11-inch LCD, and so it actually looks bigger in here. I saw a video of somebody actually dealing with one, and it looks a little bigger in this shot than even it does in real life. Well, but it's still giant.
The shot they have this nice gentleman in his nice, get up, kind of like a Friday attire, like you're going to a club or a bar. Mm-hmm. You're not bringing that shit with you, dude. Like, that thing is bigger than this man's fucking chest.
It's like the size of a very large clipboard turned lengthwise. So
imagine how loud that shit is. I remember I updated my Steam Deck recently, and that thing was so fucking loud. It was like an aircraft carrier taking off, and then it was fine. It's like, I bet that shit is loud.
They also have a bunch of smaller ones, but this one is like, this one's $1,200, so it's obviously for people that are interested in a gigantic goddamn Steam Deck.
Or if you want to, use it as a weapon, perhaps you're in an alley and you just need to like take that shit to a blunt weapon, you can.
Yep. Razer put out, they do this all the time. This is a proof of concept, not necessarily a thing that exists in the world. It is a gaming chair that has a series of bladeless fans that will either cool or warm it, depending on how you set it. Razer does this all the time, and half the time they don't do anything. It never comes to fruition, so...
They're just trying to get on the hype train. I remember like the Scorpion chair everybody sees and wants. Yep. It's like $10,000, and it's like, ooh, I can lay down and do my coding. It's like nobody codes, dude. Nobody lays down and does that.
Asus has a next-gen OLED, QD OLED monitor with like a 244. This is one of those 240 hertz refresh rates that they showed off. LG has some big TVs. Has some new TVs. One of the interesting ones with this is that apparently their latest TV can get the video signal wirelessly. So whatever you're using to drive your actual signal to the TV doesn't actually have to be connected via cable, which is kind of interesting.
I don't believe you.
Yeah.
But I will believe it when I see it. I think HDMI wireless transmissions exist.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see how they can fight over I don't know how they're doing that, radio signals. Like, how the fuck are they anyway?
No idea.
Yeah, that's interesting. Give me that.
And then finally, Sony had a thing. I don't know why they keep wanting to do this, but apparently this is just another one of these, like, hey, you can smell the video games. And I'm like, I don't want to. I have no interest in smelling the video games. Most of them take place in blood-soaked places that seem like they smell fucking terrible. I don't want to smell what Elden Ring smells like. I'm sure it's bad. Like, I don't want to smell The Last of Us. So
people want to smell Tomb Raider's asshole. I mean, Lara Croft, never mind.
And you know what? With that, we're going to go ahead and take a break because we're out of time. We do have one more story to go through from CES, and then we'll probably do a big old lightning round to get through the rest of these things. So, yeah, stick around, and we'll be back in just a minute with more RageSelect Podcast.
Don't touch that dial.
And there was one more thing that happened at CES, Blake. One more big important thing, and that is that it's kind of fucking crazy. There's an accessory company named Genki that basically was there showing off a bunch of accessories for the Nintendo Switch 2 with like
like that. What is that?
Like
we have never heard of that.
Yeah, so they had like a full like mock-up of like they said, yeah, we have our hands on a Switch 2 because we're like making accessories for it. And so they literally had what appeared to be just like a full like this is what it's going to look like, and it had like kind of like magnetic connectors that we've heard about for the little Joy-Cons on the side. Is a little
First
slightly
thing I noticed is how seamless that connection was when he took it off and put it on.
Yeah.
Ooh, that looks smooth.
I don't really take the Joy-Cons off of my Switch because I never take it out of the dock and I have a Pro controller, but like, okay. There's also
I think it's a fault that they're fixing, you know, and I think that every time that you have a new device, you want to see improvements and faults. So I think that's a good one.
Yep. Yeah. And also there's a new button. There's like a different button on one of the face sides, the C button. But it's kind of crazy that Nintendo just refuses to announce this, even though everybody knows it exists. Everybody knows it's out there. There's fucking, people that are making like screen protectors and controller mods for it that are like, yeah, this is exactly what it looks like. And Nintendo's still just like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's going to be hard for me to knock them if they do a announce, release, and plenty of stock. I don't know if that's why they're doing this. I don't know if they're like, we are going to collect stock for multiple quarters and really keep that shit high just so anybody that wants one can buy one. But I think now you're in this weird, I said it earlier, we're in this weird gray area of tariffs. Nintendo Switch right now could retail for $349, or with tariffs it could be like $500. I don't think
if the tariff if that actually even happens. Like, it's unclear.
Right.
We now we live in the roll the dice chaos future. Spin the wheel today and figure out what the fuck is going to happen. Like, not to go too far off in directions that I tell everybody that we're not going to go, but this Greenland and Canada shit is just like, who had that on their fucking bingo card?
That was on my like don't look below list. But for me, the Nintendo is doing a very interesting posture move, which is not announced yet, which seems a little dangerous because if you don't announce, you're going to be liable to like, hey, we have to have a $700 handheld console because we just can't. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it could completely fail because of that. Like, unless you announce it and say it's always going to be this price no matter what. I don't know. That's more interesting for me than they're not talking about it.
Yeah.
It's like, how much is it going to be, and is it going to survive this? Like,
the thing is that Nintendo, for years, like, they've always tried to make their costs come in like below everybody else because they really want their system to be the one that's easy to just go buy it and it works and everything is like, you know,
tested, functioning, all that. Yeah.
Probably the thing that you said that was the most was the highest probability of being true is the fact that like there have been a lot of rumors they're just building like this huge stockpile because they do not want the scalper thing to happen. They've looked at they looked at other stuff. They're just like, we do not want the secondhand market. We want people to be giving us money for the thing that we sell. We don't want this bullshit because it makes people mad. It makes them have bad feelings about our stuff. So we're just going to
for the brand. Yeah, it's absolutely bad for the brand, especially when you're taking it away from kids' hands, right? Like, who wants the Nintendo Switch 2? Kids. Who's buying it? Adults who want to sell it on eBay for $600. You know,
right.
like that's what it is.
So, but yeah, we've got pretty much everything but an announcement. We even had, there was a patent that got filed that was actually filed in 2023, but it kind of finally came up last week that says, this is something that we've been kind of curious about for a while, that basically the Switch 2 is also going to have some kind of upscaling tech in it, some kind of AI upscaling tech, which makes a lot of sense. And I wish that they had done sooner because, like, I don't want to play games on the Switch anymore, like, unless they're specifically, like, unless they're really good or something. I just, I'm used to now a certain level of fidelity. I'm used to 4K or 60 frames per second or some kind of really nice lighting engine or any of these things, and the Switch just doesn't really have the power to do that stuff right now. And I don't lay in bed and play the Switch because I spend all my time in the room that's full of 4K televisions and computers and shit. So
I lay in there and play a Steam Deck. I think that's the problem is that when it releases, if it's already behind, it's going to be even more problematic. So having AI upscale is actually good. It's almost like tells me that they're actually in line with the existing conversation of gaming. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it's so far behind.
Yeah, and also, I mean, as we mentioned in the first part, AI upsampling techniques can be updated, especially if they're software-based, as opposed to having to buy, like, a new piece of hardware. You could definitely have an update that comes out that is specifically tailored for a specific game, that's been tested to make sure that it makes that one game look as good as it can. And that's the thing I like about Nintendo, is that when they put stuff out, it just works. Again, going back to the beginning where you were talking about the Nemesis system, I remember when the 3DS came out, and I was like, they said, oh, you hold it here and then it looks 3D, and I was like, you're
like, that shit is not gonna work.
It's made up bullshit. And then I got it, I was like, oh no, that's magical. I don't know how you fucking did this. And then the 3DS XL that had the camera to actually follow your eyes and do it even better, I was like, my god, you guys are fucking good at this shit. So
I think it's a testament to, remember when the Wii came out and how many fucking peripherals were with that? You know, you had to get it on top of your TV to do this and that, and then it fucking worked, and you're like, whoa. Yep. That's insane. You know?
Totally worked. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how Nintendo enters into this particular arena, because a lot of the AI upsampling has been janky, and Nintendo don't put up with janky. They're just like, nope. Fuck janky. It's got to work. Mario's got to look right. We're not going to put up with Mario looking wrong. So, we'll see how it goes. Let's see. We also have we had a story last week about Microsoft trying to get into the handheld market.
Please tell me what you're showing me is not the legitimate picture of a Microsoft Atari Lynx.
No, it is not. But what's interesting is they were talking. It was an interview that was done by The Verge with their VP of Next Generation, talking about the future of gaming handhelds, where they basically said that, like, rather than having a portable Xbox, what they really want to do is they want it to be a portable, like, PC that has direct integration with the Xbox, like very seamless integration with Xbox. So instead of, like, focusing their efforts on making, like, a specific handheld that has, like, an Xbox OS on it, or God forbid a Steam OS. There's no way Microsoft would never let Linux be on a product that they sell. That instead
do it let it fucking go, Microsoft. Stop with this whole Xbox shit. Get out of the console game and just make an OS.
So it's
that's
the
what
quote
you really
here.
Want to do.
I would say it's bringing the best of Xbox and Windows together, because we spent the last 20 years building a world-class operating system, but it's really locked to the console. But Microsoft has a really terrible track record at doing this. Like, their phone OS was the reason that, what was it, like Windows 10 or whatever had all the boxes, and it was like half of a phone OS, and everybody was like, no, this isn't a fucking phone. I don't want my PC to act like a phone.
It doesn't know what its identity is anymore. I mean, even with Microsoft 11 now, it's just fucking Microsoft 10 with ads. It's so heavy. That's why I'm like, get out of the Xbox game. Like, this whole Xbox Series S, Series X, they're terrible with naming conventions. They're terrible with decision making. They need to stop and just make the fucking OS available on other handheld systems. You will get more money in the long run with software than you are in the hardware game, and I don't know why they're not doing that.
To me, it's like I wish that they would stop trying to merge ideas. I wish that they would just make one thing and then this thing. Like,
You can't make it at all, so you might as well focus on what you can and focus on making that one aspect versus trying to make all aspects and not doing it.
Yeah. I would actually there's actually a part of me that would give the idea of using Microsoft Edge a chance if every time I updated Windows, they're like, "Hey, buddy, we changed your browser back to Microsoft Edge. I know that you wanted that," and then you're like, "No, I want Chrome." They're like, "Now, are you sure? Because Microsoft Edge is really good, buddy, really good. Are you sure you don't want it?" And I'm like, "Okay, at this point, on general principle, no."
Stop being a human PC and just say take no as an answer.
Yeah, or OneDrive. No, I don't fucking want OneDrive. Let's see. Speaking of Microsoft, we had some other stories. One of the ones there's a lawsuit that was being done about a real world tragedy. But one of the things that came out of it was Microsoft put out like the development budgets for some of their Call of Duty games. Actually, I mean, this would be Activision, right? But basically, you can see that Black Ops 3 in 2015 was $450 million in development costs. Modern Warfare in 2019, 4 years later, was $640 million in development costs. And then Black Ops Cold War, the year after that, went up another $60 million to $700 million in development costs. And then also in that same time period, you're seeing that the number of copies sold just went down. So it was 43 million, 41 million, 30 million. Which, like, if you consider that 5 years before Black Ops Cold War, it was 450 million, and that was almost double that, like 5 years later, for less of a return, it makes you wonder, like, Call of Duty is really big, but you got to keep development costs like reasonable. I mean, I don't play that much Call of Duty, but I look at the trailers for them every year, and I usually play them for RageSelect. I don't feel like I'm seeing double the budget last year's was it Black Ops something that I did the year before. Like the character models aren't that much better than they were before, so I'm not entirely sure like where all that money is going, unless it's just the Warzone.
I mean, the only other thing I would say with this article, and I totally think it's a fair point to say that something is costing $700 million to make. Overall inflation, though, between 2015 to 2020, what does that look like from because we're talking about people's salaries and the development cost, right? Mm-hmm. Is that kind of what I honestly feel like that's a huge jump, but it's like this is kind of where we're at in the jump of inflation, right? Like 450 seems very small, but then when you go from 640 to 700 million, that's not a huge jump, right? I mean that's 60 million, but it's not as big as 450 to 640.
Inflation rate around that time wasn't as big as it has been recently. I mean, that you're talking like the inflation rate mostly happened, spikes started happening at the end of 2021, mostly through 2022, 2023. So 2020 was still, I don't know. I mean, it's possible that some of that cost might have been like, if you're talking about a 2020 game versus a 2019 game, you might have been looking at some moving the development to, at-home work as opposed to running studios, which might have been a little bit more. The big thing, though, about these numbers...
The copies of games going down, right? Like, that's what... to me, that's the outlier here is, like, regardless of how much money is spent to develop something, if you're selling less of that and you spend more money to develop... overall, that's a problem.
Yeah,
like that right there is a fundamental problem.
The other thing is that these numbers don't involve or don't have any advertising in them. These are just development figures. So, like, you can probably tack on another 50%, maybe more, for just marketing because, man, they blitz the entire internet when the new Call of Duty is coming out. So, but I don't know. I mean, I think that the yearly release schedule for Call of Duty has done nothing but bad stuff. That it's like it hasn't been a benefit. And also now Call of Duty is getting a little silly, as evidenced by our next story, and that's about the Squid Game. So Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Warzone is getting a it's actually already launched a Squid Game thing. They've got some of the guys in the pink guard costumes. They've got what do they call him? Like the front man, the guy with the face mask from the show. And then
I need to watch Squid Game. I know of it. I haven't actually watched it.
Oh, okay.
But I find it funny how it's like we've gone from I want to get the best camo I can. Why? Because I don't want to stick out and get shot in this Call of Duty game. Now It's like, I want to wear a giant pink Teflon suit and run around and make it completely obvious what I'm doing and who I am, and it's like, holy shit.
Yeah. They also have another set that's for the players. It's the kind of teal jumpsuits of the players in the game, where they also have, I'm pretty sure that you can get the little girl robot as a skin as well, the one that does the red light, green light in the show. Most of this won't mean anything to you because you haven't watched it, but the thing is that this has created a little bit of a controversy, because they had done this previously with some stuff like Dune, and there was another thing where they would have mid-season mini battle passes, right? So you have an event that was going on, and there'd be a little battle pass that you had to go through in order to unlock the skins for all this stuff. This year, that mini battle pass for Squid Game cost $10. So in addition to the ongoing current season battle pass, as well as the fact that Black Ops is a $60 to $70 video game, they're like, you can get all the guard stuff, but like the frontman stuff and some of the more popular stuff, that costs an additional $10.
They had to have their cake and eat it too. They had to make sure they had that little sprinkle of revenue on top. Yep. That's what it sounds like. Hey, you want what everybody else has got, the most popular thing? Give us $10.
Right. Which, people are not happy about, especially because the normal battle pass, like, it's a thing. I don't know, like, how much you've ever done with the battle passes, but like in Fortnite and I think in Warzone as well, like the battle passes, if you do them all the way from start to finish, you will get enough credits that you can use those credits to buy the next battle pass. If you don't buy anything else. So it's kind of a kick in the pants. But then also Activision Blizzard, I mean, Microsoft wants money, man. I'm sure that
give them the money.
I'm sure that putting Black Ops 6 on Game Pass didn't help those sales numbers we were just talking about. So like, we got to get that money. And also there's the part of it too, which like Call of Duty, what they had the Cheech and Chong pack, where I couldn't think of a less thematically resonant thing than Cheech and Chong running around with machine guns shooting people. And here it's like Squid Game is all about like rampant capitalism and how it makes people into just playthings for the wealthy and how their lives are meaningless. And
we're just going to eat that shit up as the populace and not even think twice about it.
Right.
Like, well, yeah, but I get a triangle on my face when I go kill people. It's cool.
Yeah. And the reason that all the people go to the Squid Game is because they're all desperately in debt because of Korea's fucked up like financial caste system that they have going on, and they're just like, yeah, but isn't it cool? And don't you want to give us $10 for how cool it is? And it's like, oh man, that fucking sucks. Like, I don't know. I'm probably reading too much into it, but I didn't like it when it was fucking Paul Atreides with an M4 machine gun, or Nicki Minaj with a rocket launcher, or Squid Game. I think that or Skeletor for that matter. I think all of this has been thematically ridiculous in a way that like Fortnite isn't, because but then I bought the My Hero Academia skins for Fortnite, and I couldn't bring myself to use them because I didn't want to shoot people. I didn't want All Might to have a fucking machine gun and to just mow down Rick Sanchez. So.
There's so many things to unwind with that. You play Fortnite enough to buy a battle pass where you're going to be a My Hero Academia, and you're not going to use it?
No, that season I bought all of the My Hero Academia stuff. I played with it for a little while. And then part of that year's battle pass was the Doom guy, and I was like, okay, well, this makes sense. Like, Doom guy,
he dies all the time. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, that makes total sense. But yeah, Fortnite's good. Like, I didn't think about it for a long time, but the no build Fortnite, where you don't have to build a house whenever you're getting shot at, is a really fun game, and they're really good at like updating their maps and game modes. So
I'll have to give it a shot.
Yeah. Anyway, let's see. Other Xbox Microsoft news. We got confirmation from the Game Science CEO, Feng Ji, the makers of Black Myth Wukong, that the reason that Black Myth Wukong is not out on the Xbox is because they can't get it working on the Xbox Series S. And Microsoft has this thing where if you want to put out a game on the Xbox, it has to come out on both the Series X and the Series S.
Almost like you shouldn't have fucking released the Series S as that. Like, Jesus.
So I actually think that it's not a problem, that the Series S is fine. It's just you shouldn't make it a rule that every game has to come out on both. Like, Baldur's Gate 3 was like the hit 2023, and it was a huge thing, and it didn't come out on the Xbox because they couldn't get split screen to work on the Xbox Series S because you had to run 2 instances of the game on the same system, and it just didn't have the power to do so. And
they're trying to protect the customer and themselves from a lawsuit, because I'm imagining that when you go and buy an Xbox Series S, you're going in assuming you can play the games that are advertised as both. Yeah, it would have to be a fundamental change in their strategy of sales, I feel like, to allow that. And it just is like, you shouldn't have had it to begin with.
It's it's too rigid. You guys should let go of that shit because your sales are down, and it doesn't help that, like, if you buy an Xbox Series X and you want to play Black Myth Wukong, which everybody was talking about last year, you just can't. If you wanted to play Baldur's Gate 3, you had to wait like 8 months after it came out on the PlayStation or to even be able to consider playing it on the Xbox. Like, it's just dumb for them to hamstring themselves at a point in time where they need everything that they can get to be coming out on here to make a case for why you should buy that, because right now there's very little case of why you should get a Series X. So
it says Phil Spencer was cagey about it when asked, and he says that the game supposedly failed Xbox's bug detection tests.
Yep.
Like, for some reason, like, you're going to stand high and mighty above all other fucking consoles and PC and say the game that was up for Game of the Year legitimately had bug, like, you guys have a detection of bug test that actually is like, well, we're fine to say, oh no, you can't release it on our console, you have a problem with your game. It's like, man, fuck off.
Well, it's possible that what they're talking about is that when they try to run on the Series S, it crashes because it keeps running into memory problems, and so it doesn't pass the test. And meanwhile, Game Science is not really super interested in spending a huge amount of time just like optimizing to get this thing on there just so they can release it on the Xbox, where they can just be like, no, man, we're just going to move on to DLC. It's going to make us more money for the people that already have it on the PlayStation.
Operating costs to try to recover costs that we're already losing. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like a sunk value, you know?
Yeah, so anyway, that's why that happened. Let's see. This is kind of, we got some sad stories. The unfortunately, the closing of studios / layoff, contraction of the game industry stuff has not stopped. NetEase, this week there was a story that there was a studio called Jar of Sparks that was created in 2022 by Jerry Hook, who was the person who worked on Halo and Destiny 2. NetEase put it together to basically make narrative-driven action games, and they never even really got to the point where they announced anything, but they basically said that it seems like NetEase has pulled out of publishing their game, and so they're basically going to do the thing that you see from time to time where it seems like they're going to lay off most of their staff. They didn't say that specifically, but part of the messaging was, if you need talented people, I've got a whole list of names, get in touch, and we've got a bunch of people who are looking for new opportunities. We've seen this before where a studio can shrink down to like 2 people, right? Like, that are just keeping the lights turned on, and then like a CEO who can then spend a lot of time calling around trying to find somebody to reinvest so that they can spool the studio back up again, especially if they already have some kind of thing that they can pitch for it. But that, like, when you're doing that, you're not you don't have the capital for active development. So you have to say, sorry, everybody, I got to let you go. I'll totally give you a call if we manage to get a new cash infusion, and I can hire people back. But at this point, it's either let people go or just run the bank account to zero, and then the whole thing is done,
just doomed and gloomed.
The end. So bad. And it seems like there was another studio called Worlds Untold that NetEase created in 2023 with a veteran of BioWare named Mac Walters that also had the same thing happen. I think reported on it last year. But so it seems like NetEase is like probably cutting off some of that stuff, especially given the fact that NetEase is the one that made Marvel Rivals, and I'm sure that's doing very well for them. We got more about that later on, but they're probably a few years behind the general consensus, and they're just like, nah, these narrative things take too long. Get them out, put in more Wolverine skins.
Yeah, we know what the people want. They want to play Wolverine as Squid Game as Nicki Minaj as all the other shit. Let's get with that. Get with the program.
We also found out that Splash Damage, who they made like Brink and Gears Tactics, which I think is a criminally underrated game. They had a game that was teased at the Game Awards of 2022 called Transformers Reactivate that was going to be some kind of like, the Transformers apocalypse has happened and you're going to play as Transformers. apparently Hasbro has come in and said that like whatever their status is, they're not happy with it. It's not making enough progress, so they're basically shutting that down and canceling it. And then there's probably going to be some reorg stuff that happens for them as well. They say they're basically going to be moving back to kind of like to just doing upkeep on their current stuff, which I don't know what that means because they don't really have any current stuff, but whatever.
They're keeping the lights on. They're refusing to turn off the light switch. That's what they're keeping up with.
Hey, man, Splash Damage put out Brink, and that game fucking sucked. And so the fact that they still survive to this day, I'm like, okay.
Pretty crazy.
But we also got some video of what that Transformers game looked like, and it was kind of interesting looking. It was like a third-person action game with kind of a Transformers UI where it was going to be a kind of a PvE thing where you'd have 4 people that played as different Transformers and you could kind of roll around the map. So there was some leaked footage that happened. There hasn't been like a good Transformers. There was a Transformers game that came out last year that was so bad that I wouldn't even put it on the channel as a joke. So there hasn't been that many. There hasn't been a really big Transformers game, I think, since Transformers. There was a Platinum Games Transformers game in like 2015 or something that was good. But
it's crazy to think that a game style like that. I mean, that's the thing with, I guess, what's the last Mech Warrior game that's been any good? I feel like giant robots destroying buildings for some reason is just too archaic in this day and age for gaming.
You know what? There's actually a pretty successful Mech Warrior online game, I believe, that Mech Warrior 5 Mercenaries came out in 2021. I'm not sure if there's anything else that has come out since then.
You know what I mean? Like, it seems like there is a hole to be filled.
Yeah.
I think Armored Core is probably the closest, just to give you some credit, right? But
there we go. Mech Warrior 5 Clans came out last year, October of last year, no less. Mech Warrior, I think Mech Warrior has a very dedicated fan base to the point where like it's so niche that if you put something out in Mech Warrior, you're going to get a certain number of sales because there are people that just want to play Mech Warrior. So, but yeah, the more interesting one for me is the fact that 2K had, or Take-Two, not 2K, Take-Two had an indie publishing label called Private Division, and Private Division put out things like there's an upcoming Shire, it's Animal Crossing, but in the Hobbit Shire, which I think looks like garbage.
Oh, yes, I saw that. Yeah, it looked a little too cartoony for me. But
Kerbal Space Program 2 was under there. There was a few other games that were under that. But here's the weird thing about this is that Strauss Zelnick cut that off. They were like, this isn't making enough money. We don't care. We don't want it. So it got sold, and we've recently found out that it got sold to an investment company called Haveli Investments. But this is weird because it ties into another thing. There was, I don't know if you and I ever talked about this. Annapurna Interactive, Annapurna the movie studio?
No.
Annapurna, they're like a artsy movie house
why have I never heard of this?
You've seen the movies that they've put out, but so Annapurna.
Yes, the Stray Cat game is by them.
Okay, yeah. So Annapurna had a video game publishing division called Annapurna Interactive, and last year there was a big power play that happened there. Annapurna Interactive has a really good reputation. They put out Stray. They put out a bunch of really well-beloved indie games. Kentucky Route Zero, Outer Wilds, Sign Wild Hearts, Neon White, What Remains of Edith Finch, like all these games that people really like. They had a really good reputation as being a publisher of really fantastic indie games. They had an eye for it. The woman who owns Annapurna Interactive kind of did an end run around, owns the Annapurna Movie Studio, did an end run around Annapurna Interactive and kind of took some of the power out of the hands of the people that had been running it for a while. And so they quit en masse. It was like the 15 core founders or something. They all just resigned and said, nah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But what's happening here is that apparently that group of people who have no name yet are going to be taking over Private Division and the games that they're about to publish. They're going to publish more things under it with the backing of this. I don't even know I don't even know who Haveli Investments is. They're a private equity firm based in Austin, Texas. So
Whoa.
There you go.
Holy shit.
So, okay. cool, I guess.
3 years ago.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting story to see where that all like came out, because it's kind of nuts that you had this group of people that were like, they were hit makers, legitimate hit makers that were able to, like, they had such an eye for stuff that they were able to put out hit after hit after hit, and that corporate just fucked them to the point where they all were just like, hey,
we're done.
Eat dicks. We're out of here. And now they're taking over. What's really interesting to me is the fact that Kerbal Space Program got sold. The company that made Kerbal Space Program 2, they got into big problems. The game was never any good. They shut down. The game is no active development. It was being reverted to private division for like whoever's going to quote unquote take over. But there was no question about whether anybody was actually going to be doing anything with it. So my hope is that these guys are talented enough that at some point they'll be like, we need to hire a studio to come in and make this game what it should have been in the first place. Once we get our feet underneath us, let's look at fixing this problem. So,
dang, lots of interesting things coming, but that's kind of shitty. I'm glad that those employees said, fuck it, and we're going to make our own thing.
It's a great story. IGN has a big piece on it. I recommend everybody go look for Annapurna Interactive. It's a wild story. There's a lot of names you got to keep like track of, because it's like there's a guy that leaves and he comes back, and the guy that ran that Annapurna Interactive was like the head of Annapurna Pictures for a little while, and then there's like this and private investment, all this crazy stuff. Equally crazy, and this is a story that I think everybody should go watch, even though it's a very difficult story. There's a YouTube channel called People Make Games that they do documentaries about video games and how they're made and stuff. And they just put out a video. It's a 50-minute long video on YouTube that's called 100 Slaps: The Breaking News the Games Industry Ignored in 2024. That is about an Indonesian support studio called Brandoville Studios. That, like, this is one of those studios where like Age of Empires or The Last of Us Part 1 remake, they have work that needs to be outsourced, and instead of outsourcing it to local places, they'll outsource it to these remote studios. This place was run like so the CEO, I can't get into all of it because we don't have the time, but the CEO was this guy named Ken Lai. His wife, Cherry Lai, basically got a hold of the employees that worked there and then abused them in ways that, like, are not possible in the United States. Like the 100 slaps in that video title is about this woman that worked for her, where as punishment for doing something wrong, she asked her to slap herself in the face 100 times. And to prove that she did it, she made her take a video of just as hard as she can slapping herself in the face for like 20 minutes, like 100 times. There was a part during a lot of the lockdown stuff where they all ended up like kind of bunking in the studio where they were working, and this Cherry Lai would make them like get up at 5:30 and schedule what they were going to do all day. She would make them pray because she was a Christian, even though a lot of those people were not Christians. It was just like an unending amount. There's one where she told one of the employees that they weren't good with their money, so they had to give her a chunk of their money, and she would tell them what to spend it on. It was this like incredible psychological and physical abuse.
That doesn't even sound like I mean, I hope people out there, I mean, anyone who works in a corporate fashion knows the whole work-life balance. I mean, I'm sorry, anyone who works, period, knows the whole work-life balance thing, right?
Yep.
How dare anybody try to take advantage like that of anybody trying to do what's just a meaningful 9-to-5 job, so they can just go home. You know what I mean? Like, and then you're just going to be like, no, now you got to pray with me. It's like, no, I'm not a part of your freaking weird cult.
I think in Asia, there's a lot of like the work standard is different, right? Like I've seen a lot of this and stuff about Korea and stuff about Japan where it's like, here in the United States,
persona is that it's how well you work and what you do.
Having a job, like not having a job, is considered extremely bad and like kind of shameful and stuff. And so there's a lot of places where you can get away more with like like direct abuse in a way that, like, if any boss ever said, if you want to keep your job, you're going to take a cell phone video of you slapping yourself in the face 100 times and be like,
you don't need to work anymore because you have a lawsuit.
I'll take a video of me slapping your face with my dick. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like,
well, that could be for OnlyFans. Then you can actually start making money on that.
I'm from Texas. I'm an American, and like, fuck y'all. I'm gonna go eat chili and shoot guns up in the air and get another job. I don't give a fuck.
There's no beans in my chili.
So I recommend everybody go and watch this. It has like it's not a great ending, but basically that support studio got shut down eventually. And the thing is that the Jakarta police are actually looking for this woman because like apparently in Indonesia they have a thing where it's like if it's not viral, it's not viral, it's not crime or something. They have some like thing that basically the way to get the police to do something is you have to put it online. And because this was an office, there are hundreds of texts and videos and documentation about all this stuff. But it appears that Cherry Lai and her husband have absconded to Hong Kong from Jakarta. So, but at least the employees that were there, they're out kind of picking up the pieces and figuring it out. But it's a terrible story, and it's something we don't hear about a lot because I feel like in the race to try to take away crunch and abuse in the United States, we have to make sure that just doesn't get then outsourced somewhere where we don't ever hear about it.
It's still your responsibility. If you hand the keys to somebody, I'm saying not unfortunately. Fortunately, you are responsible for that because if you're going to put your name on the product and they're doing work for the said product, it is still a part of your responsibility to take care of that. So as much as you can go, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I would never allow no, I'm sorry. You're going to have to do what is called due diligence.
Yep. Let's see. Oh, they also did work on Assassin's Creed Shadows, which is the segue into this story that I just added.
Oh, no.
Assassin's Creed Shadows delayed again. It was supposed to be coming out in February, and now it has been pushed back to March 20th in order for them to basically... I don't know. It's just some corporate bullshit. Like, so we've been thrilled with the progress. We're committed to delivering a high quality immersive experience fostered by ongoing dialogue between our players and development teams. And probably just, the only thing I can think of that makes any sense with this is that there's a lot riding on this because Ubisoft's last few projects have been
they
terrible.
should just literally rephrase this and put it in big bold letters. We can't fuck this up, so we don't want to release a unfinished product. They're actually basically holding themselves accountable for things that they've done in the past, and it's kind of commonplace in the industry now, which is release an unfinished game and don't worry about it. They don't want to do that because if people bounce off Assassin's Creed Shadows, what does Ubisoft do from that point? The Assassin's Creed franchise has to be dead. What else are you going to do?
Last year, I just looked up the games they put out in 2024. Star Wars Outlaws didn't sell the way they wanted it to. Prince of Persia, I thought was great, but I think got very overlooked because it came out early in the year. Skull and Bones was a fucking slow-motion car wreck that finally came out, even though it was garbage. Beyond Good and Evil, 20th Anniversary Edition was fine, but you're never going to make a lot on that. And then
that market's there.
Yeah. X-Defiant launched and then is now shut down. So,
I honestly feel like the only thing riding for this Assassin's Creed game is I think Valhalla sold very well, but that was also in a time of the pandemic where nobody had a lot of going out to do, so they kind of stayed home, and there was a lot of extra sales because of that. So
it was also 5 years ago, so
yeah, I know. That's where I'm like, I don't think this is gonna do well. I don't know, because there's so many other options for Asian warfare, like Ghost of Tsushima, Nioh. It's not like this is an untapped genre or whatever, right? They're just kind of doing the same thing, so we'll see.
Yep. Let's see. Speaking of Shadows, there were some few movie announcements that came with CES from Sony, and one of them is that Shadow of the Colossus film that was announced back in 2009 is still it's not dead. It's not necessarily totally alive, but apparently the people in charge of it have a full-on they have a full-on plan on how to make it, and they're now just looking for the amount of funding that they're going to get. And I don't know. It's funny because I feel like nowadays you could probably make a Shadow of the Colossus game for relatively cheap, considering you can CGI the monsters. And there's not it's not like you have to cast 300 characters for all the people that are in Shadow of the Colossus. It's like one dude, one lady, and 8 kaiju.
Giant fuck, yeah.
So, but we also found out that there is a Ghost of Tsushima anime that is being put together that's probably not going to be coming out until 2027, and is going to be based on the Legends mode, which is kind of about them going into like the underworld and fighting demons and stuff. So not just the regular mode, but it's being produced in collaboration with Aniplex, who, you know, Demon Slayer, Solo Leveling, Sword Art Online. So, you know, that's a lot of good names to put on a thing. So
I just want to say on the aside, I love the explosion of animes with video game. Like Onimusha has an anime that I've recently seen. You know, they're just. It seems to me that there's
a Nier anime. The Cyberpunk 2077 Edge Runners is great.
And Arcane, like legitimate Arcane. Now it seems like they're understanding what's possible with, hey, we're already doing this, right? Like there's the interactive portion of what we do, and then there's the cinematic element. Why not just do more of that as well and add more to the lore? I love it. Love it.
Yep. It's pretty good. Also, there is a Helldivers 2 and Horizon. I think we already knew there was a Horizon Zero Dawn movie coming, but they did announce that they're starting up plans for a Helldivers 2 movie.
It's already out. It's called
Starship Troopers. Yeah. So I actually think that Helldivers 2. Okay, here's the thing. Like I think that Helldivers 2.
They made the joke in the article. Damn it. Oh.
This could be an absolutely fantastic movie. It must be a comedy. It must be a comedy. It cannot be serious, or it has to be a comedy that is taking itself very seriously, but we are allowed to laugh at it, and it's not like the fucking Expendables
or something. I don't know if it's
going
to work, though. And the reason why I don't know if it's going to work is because the characters in Helldivers are the people playing it. Well, it's not. There's not like look, there's Joe Helldiver.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like
you do have the guy from the beginning, the "Oh Sweet Liberty" guy, you know. That's true. And I think again, you need a good creative team. Can you imagine a movie in Helldivers where it's like Starship Troopers, where you get a whole squad of characters and they're played by A-list actors, and you know who they are, and every 5 minutes they just keep killing them, then somebody new walks in, like, you know, the main character that you've been following for the last 10 minutes just dies suddenly, and then one of the other Helldivers takes off his helmet, and it's like, oh shit, that's Idris Elba. He's the new Helldiver, and he's like, all right, squad, let's go. And then he dies as well.
You know what, having said that, why don't you just write it? Just go ahead. Yeah. You got it. You know what you're doing.
It's just that one gag, and then just repeat it like
over
14
and
times.
over again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's live, die, repeat.
Yeah. Either that or it's just a movie where it's like My Dinner with Andre, where it's just one of the robots and one of the bugs talking about how shitty the humans and their fascistic super Earth are for like 2 hours, and like, yeah, I had a friend who was a human one time, and then he started talking about super Earth, and suddenly I can't talk to him online anymore. He says he's going to come to my planet, kill me for some reason.
That just sounds like the internet.
Yeah. Let's see. There was also we're almost out of time. Okay, yeah, we can do these real quick. Okay, real quick. There was I thought it was really interesting. There was a thing where they were talking to the PlayStation developers about how the PlayStation worked, and they said that when they built it, their hypothesis was that people would put the console into rest mode and then like shut it down if they were going to be walking away for quite some time. But they basically found out that basically the PlayStation user base is split 50-50. 50% of people never shut down their PlayStation and only ever put it in rest. The other 50% always shut down their PlayStation and never put it into rest mode. So the question is,
I'm a part of. I don't know what I think I do it in rest mode, but
yeah. Well, you have to manually turn it off. Like you either have to hold down the button until it beeps twice, or you have to go into the UI, go to power, and push power down.
That's what I do. I literally go to the UI, go to the power button, and hit rest mode so I can charge the controller. Now we haven't added the element of charging the controller. You can't do that if it's turned off.
Yes, you can. I do it all the time. If the PlayStation's turned off, it'll still trickle charge the controller.
No fucking way. Really? When you plug it, it literally says in the fucking UI, like little thing, it says to charge your controller, the rest mode.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it doesn't, and I'm wrong. But what I'm really interested in is this is a transparent ploy Well, no, it does. If I take my controller, my PlayStation is turned off.
This is how I know I get it, Jeff, is when it's like the thought has moved on and then it's like, wait a second, hold on a minute.
No, okay, no, it doesn't. Okay, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Yeah, you're right.
God,
you're
totally right. That's
you're
like
totally
the one
right.
time that I was right. I was like, it feels good. This feels very good. It feels very warm.
My PlayStation is on so much that I forgot that was the thing, but I'm really more interested.
Third category they haven't talked about, which is my PlayStation 5 is always on. I don't turn it off.
Is asking the audience, do you rest or turn off? I specifically, my problem, Blake, is that I plug and unplug. I have the Xbox Series X, I have my PlayStation 5, and I have my Apple TV, and they're all sitting here by my TV. I have 2 plugs and 3 devices. So shit's got to get unplugged, and I don't like that fucking, I got to check my file system when I boot up bullshit. So I always turn everything all the way off as opposed to putting anything in rest mode and then yanking the plug out of it. So
there you go.
All right, and then last, before we take a break, let's just we'll do this one. Monster Hunter Wilds is getting some new open betas in February, so if you want to try that out, open beta test 2 is happening Thursday, February 6th through Sunday, February 9th, and then the last one, Thursday, February 13th through Sunday, February 16th. There's going to be one new boss in here. How would you pronounce that word, Blake?
Geforce.
Geforce.
I always get something in. This is like a magic name. You know what I mean? Where you don't quite know how to pronounce it, but you're still going to play it because it's like a 6 mana drop. Boom. Yep. Geforce.
A lot of the problems that were found in beta 1, they specifically put out a little trailer where they talked where the developer was like kind of playing the game. The problems found in beta 1 will not be fixed in beta 2 because they are being fixed for the final release and not to be integrated into another demo to be put out on the PlayStation Network. So
it's kind of fun. We won't fix our problems yet. Deal with it.
Yeah. They said that, like, they specifically came out and said, like, the stuff that you guys reported in the first one, we appreciate it. It will not be fixed in the second beta. Again, this is more of a stress test than it is trying to do all the bug fixes. So
I'm not sure that game trailers YouTube comments are the best, but that first comment that I briefly saw there is Geforce. Oh Lord.
I still don't know the Monster Hunter monsters enough to basically have an opinion on them, but yep. Anyway, sign up if you want to get in on that. And from that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for part 2. We've got trailers and a few more announcements in part 3, so stick around and we'll be right back with all of that. And we're back. And that means it's time for trailers. And we have a bunch of trailers for Marvel Rivals because Marvel Rivals Season 1 is starting, and it's all about the Fantastic Four. So instead of that chintzy Overwatch bullshit where you get one hero, we've got 4. There are 4 heroes, even though they split this into 2 parts. And it's also being combined with a big new thematic thing where Doctor Strange has been imprisoned, and Dracula and Doctor Doom have teamed up to put a bunch of darkness on the world. There's going to be a bunch of skins that come in. So we got a bunch of different trailers for this. Have you been continuing to play Marvel Rivals, Blake? Or
yeah, I was like, do you hear what's happening in front of us? Oh, that's Marvel Rivals and everything in it. Passing Blake by because he played 3 days of it. It was amazing. But now I feel like I'm so behind. People have figured out the meta. It's actually, I have a lot of great things to say about it. It's one of the easiest, most quick access in and out games I've ever played. It follows a lot of the comic book lore. It does a great job of presenting itself as a comic book game, and I don't really have any drawbacks to this game. Like, it's fucking free. Like, what? I just think at this point, there's not enough you can say. If you haven't tried Marvel Rivals and you have any bit of interest in comic books, give it a shot. It's just fun. I mean, even if you get your ass kicked, you're still flying around as Iron Man. Like, how bad can that be, right?
So, yeah, true. Yeah,
but
so
we're getting Fantastic Four. Sorry to go off on tangent.
Oh,
we're
no.
getting the Fantastic Four now.
Yep.
So
and they're starting with Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman. Mr. Fantastic, of course, stretching out there, doing stuff. It was kind of interesting to watch some of the abilities. Like instead of a gun or whatever, he's like kind of like.
Is he a tank? As that looks like.
I think he's a strategist.
Okay.
But he's able to like grab characters and slam together in the air. He's able to kind of like poof himself up to get like a temporary like buff where he's got like more
shield
muscle
buff or something.
No, like an offensive buff where he looks kind of like Ben Grimm. And then his ultimate is interesting because it's like he bounces up in the air and then like. Every time he comes down on the ground, it like hurts everybody in a specific radius, and he bounces like 4 or 5 different times. So
that's awesome.
Seems like an interesting character. I always think Mr. Fantastic, it's a challenge to be like, he's a stretchy bendy guy. He's also a very serious scientist, and also he has to punch people, and it's like, wait, what?
Are we gonna ever have a Fantastic Four movie that's not ass? That's my question.
I still maintain that the first Fantastic Four movie was okay. It wasn't that ass. It was some ass, but not too much ass. But
it was too much of Jessica Alba's ass.
That's true. Speaking of Invisible Woman, oh no, she's a strategist. I don't remember whether he was a tank or not.
I feel like he looks like a tank just based on some of the mechanics, but maybe I'm wrong. You know what? I should go play Marvel Rivals and find out for myself.
Yeah. She has some interesting, kind of like force powers. She can obviously turn invisible. She's got a way to put down like a kind of an area where if a character is in there, they'll get hurt. She can kind of deploy a mobile shield. The coolest
force push that just pushes them off the fucking map, which is going to be annoying as hell.
Yeah, the coolest thing that I think I saw was her ultimate, where basically she creates a big area, and anybody that's inside that area that just can't be seen. Like you could see where the area is.
That's awesome.
But you can't aim at anybody inside of it because you can't see them, but they can all see outside the area. So, which is pretty cool. So
that's a cool little thing. Get your team in there, and then they can't actually get hit. They just literally destroy.
You could totally see a thing where one of the big ults is coming, and you're able to kind of put that up as a defense, since you can't actually target anybody in that area if it's like
we blind
a ranged one. Yeah. I'm more of a fan. They've got these like two-tone blue and white suits. I like the Fantastic Four suits when they're more blue because Agreed. I think it sets them apart from a lot of the other folks, but there's nothing that looks totally wrong with this. There is, however, a very interesting story, and I'm not, this is a bit prurient, but it was on my list. So it turns out that the Psylocke in the original game was modeled after this influencer named Elena Alicia. And once the game came out, she went online and she was like, yes, I can confirm that is my ass for Psylocke, because Psylocke's costume, you could, very much see it. So then she said she was watching the trailers for the new stuff, and she was like, I looked at Sue Storm's butt, and I was like, wait, that's my ass again. And so she called her publicist, and they were like, yeah, they use the same model for Psylocke and Invisible Woman, so it's also your ass again. And like, she said this on Twitter. She's obviously like a good sport about it and having a good time.
And I honestly, more props to her.
Yeah.
I find it to be very interesting. Jeff, if I were to put a lineup of asses, pictures, let's just say pictures, and I put them all up on the wall, and I have a picture of your ass, but all other asses as well. Can you pick that out of a lineup?
Not even a little bit. I
couldn't either. I mean, not your ass, but my ass. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you my own ass outside of maybe the density of hair, but if you put it in like a superhero spandex, I'd be like, no idea. I can't see the back of myself. I don't know. There could be a whole other face on the back of my head. There could be like a Voldemort on the back of my head, and it could just be really like it's just quiet all the time, and so I don't know.
I would have told you about that by now, but maybe like what happens is that like when you do the podcast, you just turn around, and then the back of your head actually does the podcast, right? I just have to check to make sure which Jeff I'm talking to.
But I thought that was funny. Yeah, again, I mean, like obviously this person is an influencer, and they do know.
Props to her, because it was accurate. It was actually confirmed.
Yeah.
Yes, that's insane.
They do know what their own ass looks like, and so they were like. Also, I watched some. There's a one clip. I don't watch other influencers all that much. I wouldn't even consider myself one, but there's one clip of her playing Tekken where the person that she's playing drops halfway through, and she just goes on this unhinged, just like, you go fuck yourself, you fucking piece of shit. And everybody's like, she's like, Elia, calm down. You said you were going to be chill. And she's like, I'm sorry. I just hate it when people disconnect when I'm kicking their ass.
She just goes on a rant, and then, and it's like, you deserve everything that you're going to get. Because, how are they going to defend themselves? They can't.
Yep. It's pretty cool. Anyway, back to the trailers. Speaking of weird crossovers and in-game stuff, Dead by Daylight is getting a Junji Ito collection DLC that has a bunch of different characters from different Junji Ito stories that are all going to be killers. We've got, all I really know is Tomi. Tomi's the big one. A lot of them are from more of the short stories, and some of them are from Junji Ito stories that I don't actually like all that much. So there's the model from
do we have a
artist. There is no Uzumaki, there is no Gyo, there is no Remina Hellstar. A lot of it is there's this family that he made. This kind of demon family that was part of like an anthology where there was like the son, and there was kind of a little demonic daughter, and there was like a younger brother that kind of had like his little candles on his head, and like he chewed on nails and stuff, and they're all in there.
This is great. This looks fantastic. I know that the lore already exists, but generally creepy. I'm very impressed.
I think that, so it's funny because last year we got the Uzumaki anime that turned out to have one good episode, and then it just went to shit because of horrible production problems. I still think that Junji Ito is like vastly underused, and one of the biggest disappointments I've ever had was the fact that he was going to be the character, the monster designer for that Silent Hills game that Kojima was going to make with Guillermo del Toro and Norman. And I was like, he would be perfect for that. And the fact that his stuff I feel like he's never really broken into the mainstream. That like people, horror fans and aficionados know who Junji Ito is, and his stories are great. Like everybody,
they are.
I went and bought the hardback of Uzumaki because it's like, this is just such a great story, and it's so awesome that I want to be able to pull it out and read it. Tomi is weird because it's like an anthology that doesn't have an ending. Like a lot of his stuff, like Gyo and Remina Hellstar, is like a narrative that has a beginning and a middle and an end. But Tomi is like a series of short stories about this woman who can't die and makes men crazy, and very strange stuff. But yeah, anybody who doesn't know, this is mostly just an excuse for me to go, if you don't know about Junji Ito, you go read a bunch of Junji Ito. It's great. The thing I like about Junji Ito, Blake, is that nobody gets a happy ending in a Junji Ito story.
It's true. And it sounds like Dead by Daylight would then be the perfect combination for that. You know,
yeah.
Like just that element of creepiness. It just goes so well. Even though no happy ending in Junji Ito stories.
Even though I'm a little weirded out about the Tomi character, because it's like her in a dress, and she's got the regular face and then the kind of Tomi face coming off to one side, and the character seems like distressed that there's a Tomi face on one side, even though this character would be Tomi if this was, we're talking about the books, right? It's not like she's a malevolent spirit. It's like, this is when people paint her or take pictures of her, they see this kind of malformed face coming off of one side. So anyway, I don't know. This is Canon Queen Jeff coming out about just like, actually, if you read Tomi Volume 2, Episode 1, technically about the painter, blah 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 blah. We had some other interesting horror trailers. There's this one called No, I'm Not Human that I think looks really interesting, where it's like a very low res thing where these imposter humans have invaded, and so you've got these weird looking people that have slightly crazed features, and you're not supposed to go outside, and if you see any of them, you're supposed to murder them immediately. And so it's kind of a weird psychological game, and it's got this very kind of like lo-fi weird art style that
this
I'm
looks
just like,
fucking awesome.
Yeah,
it looks creepy because it's so in and out of place at the same time.
Yes, it's just everything is slightly off kilter and disturbing. Like in this picture of just like walking up to the door, you can see how the frame is canted a little bit.
It's like a quintessential real life Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Yes,
like, you know what I mean, like that type of feeling, but more so realistic than Courage the Cowardly Dog was. But like if it was just like a real live movie, that's the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah, it's like it's part of the interesting thing that's happened with this kind of PSX lo-fi things, using the fact that they don't look realistic as a way to be unsettling. And this doesn't even, I mean, like some of it looks 3D, but a lot of it also just looks like this kind of weird hand-drawn, like, I don't know, like Danganronpa gone really, really wrong kind of shit.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm really interested in playing this. It doesn't have a release date, but you can wish list it on Steam, and the trailer is really interesting to look at. So, there's one that I thought that that you and I might really like, called Regular Home Renovation Simulator, where it's basically like kind of like House Flipper or like a Viscera cleanup detail or something, where you're trying to like remodel / clean up a house, but then like horrible murder shit and like weird macabre imagery and like blood and gore and crazy stuff.
Away. That's funny.
It keeps coming up. Yeah.
So basically, like, oh, you're gonna renovate a home. It's so cool. Oh, now we had an accidental dead body in this room. Now you got to go clean it up.
Yeah,
I like it.
It kind of, what it reminds me of is when we played that game that was the hotline game.
Yeah,
where the people would call in about the weird stuff. We had to determine whether it was actually supernatural or just like a raccoon. And we were terrible at that game.
That game was bizarre. I think that game was probably one of the most bizarre games I've ever played. This actually reminds me of a game that came out recently called Fast Food Simulator. And that apparently is actually pretty hot right now on the streams as well. So if you ever get a chance to check that out, you might get a RageSelect Group 4 together to actually become a fast food simulator, a fast food joint together.
Oh, but this doesn't turn into a horror game at some point.
No, but you could put more ketchup on the burger. It's a simulator.
No, I get you. I was like, because I'd seen this when I was looking for stuff to put on the channel, and I was like, oh, this looks like one of those standard simulator games.
It's a totally standard simulator. There's no murder in it, but we could take it to the next level and murder people in it.
And then I was like, oh, wait, is it actually a secret horror? Because there's one. Oh God, what was it called? It's called like. There is a horror game set in fast food restaurant, Happy's Humble Burger Farm. I remember we played this a few years back, where it's like you work at a fast food restaurant, but there's all kinds of like crazy weird like iconography.
Five Nights at Freddy's type.
Yeah, and it's got like this really kind of disturbing mascot, and there's so.
That's clever.
Stuff in there, yeah. Good stuff. Let's see. We also got, this was interesting, and another one that I missed last year. So there was the Famicom Detective Club remastered edition for the Switch that they put out, that was an old game that they remastered. And then they put out a second game called Emio the Smiling Man that was basically like an expansion or like a separate game, but it was like a mini version that's basically a detective game where you're trying to find out about this serial killer that is like a guy with a paper bag with a smile on it over his head. And it's funny because I guess it didn't sell very well, because this came out like in November, and this trailer is just like, hey, we're just reminding you guys this shit exists if you want to go play it.
This is a Nintendo game?
It's a Switch game, yes.
That's insane that they're doing like serial killer games on a Switch, and they call it Famicom Detective Club. I really wish marketing existed, because this could be something I would be interested in.
Yep. I mean, the previous ones were out. I don't know, like, it's worth pointing out that Nintendo Switch is not like... There are numerous games with the like word hentai in the title on the Nintendo Switch. So, but yeah, everything that I saw from this seemed like it was pretty good. And it came out in August of last year. So I just point that out for anybody. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to do that at some point when if January gets like slow. Let's see. We also got a extended trailer for the Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition that is also coming out for the Nintendo Switch, where this one, actually, it's funny because this one went into more detail, I think, about what happens later in this game, because when you play Xenoblade Chronicles X, because I did on the Wii U when it came out, it's like this faux MMO, and you're on foot, and you're fighting big monsters on this alien planet where you've got this small group of humans. And then, like, after 15 hours or something, you could finally get a mech. And then you could fly around a mech to do stuff. But you have to go through this huge chunk of the game before you can actually get the mech. And then this trailer actually showed that it appears like later on there's like alien antagonists that show up in their own mechs that then you have to have like mech fights with. And
I'm sure that's tapping into Jeff's like, oh my God, I got to get to that part of the game.
Yeah, well, sort of, except that I played the original part of the game and I'm like, I don't want to play that part of this game. I only want to play the mech part. Oh yeah, I could just start up Armored Core and start by playing the mech games. But yeah, there's all this stuff with these like this weird kind of alien creatures and like, oh, are they from this planet? And they all talk like anime villains and I'm like, I didn't know any of this was in this fucking game, which is a real testament to how bad the marketing was for it originally, that if this is what happens later on, then like, wow, okay. Still not going to play it, but
Xenoblade Chronicles, where you have to have 1 billion hours to play it.
Yeah. The Xenoblade Saga 3, I think I was kind of interested in, but again, I don't like the fake MMO JRPGs. Like, I don't like that style of combat. I didn't like to play it in MMOs, and I don't like playing it in single player games. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
No matter how good the story is, I'm a little like, eh.
It takes you out of it.
Yeah. Still looks good. But again, also, this is a game that's old enough that it should also look better, run better, and be sharper than it is right now if it wasn't just on the Switch. So I don't know if they ever put it on the PC, maybe I'll take a look at it there. But let's see. Another anime bullshit news. We got a big trailer for Freedom Wars Remastered, which is coming out. Well, actually, by the time this comes out, it'll already be out. This is a PSP game that was like a trying to get in on the Monster Hunter franchise, where basically the idea is that the world is so overpopulated that everybody is born with a prison sentence, and once you become like a teenager, you have to go to jail where you hunt like monsters and perform like rescue missions for the public good and then you're working down your sentence to become a full citizen, and then you end up fighting these giant kind of bipedal creatures and big like monsters and stuff. And I'm sure that there's something about the secret organization / God or whatever that is keeping you down, or you have to do that at the end. To me, this is a really weird choice for a game to remaster because, again, it was a PSP only game. And like, it looks good. I mean, I have to check it out for the RageSelect at some point, but it was never the thing I would have thought would have come.
They're going to focus and they're going to remaster this Freedom Wars game.
Yeah. And even though like going here, it shows that they've redone the textures, that it looks better. They've redone the graphics.
44p. Look at that. Potato quality to decent quality.
Yeah. And they've redone, like, you know, you can customize your controls, and there's more ways to get online and play with other people, because you do have a kind of you can play it with other people to take down like bigger monsters and stuff. So, you know, there's some good stuff in there. I don't know. Again, got to check and see whether it was one of those games where like I was kind of interested in it, but I never wanted to be hunched over a PSP for 20 hours. So like being able to play it on the TV, you know, was preferable. So let's see. We also got a very brief teaser for another Everspace 2 expansion. So Everspace 2 came out a few years back. They had a Behemoth expansion, I think, that came out last year. They've got this thing called Aethon, where it looks kind of like, I think this happened before, some kind of horror in space stuff going on, with very much just kind of the scenes of like large scale destruction. I still need to go back and play this game because I dig me some space games. And
looks incredible.
Yeah, this one's supposed to be really good. I actually found out that it was one of the games that was confirmed to have a PS5 Pro mode, but that mode hasn't come out yet. But I checked today, and it was on sale on the PS5 for $15. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to buy this, and then when the Pro mode comes out, then I'll play it.
Yeah, that's cool. No, that looks really good.
Yep. Let's see. We got a brief teaser for Hyperlight Breaker. This is for a class called Vermilion that shows off a little bit more. This is coming out into early access next week from the people that brought you Hyperlight Drifter, and there was another game that wasn't as well received, but it's kind of a third-person action roguelike that I think a lot of people are really interested in, because Hyperlight Drifter has a really ravenous fan base. So,
I've never heard of this game.
Yeah, the original you might have heard of. It might have been before. It was like a top-down kind of pixel-based. No, not Breaker. I want Drifter. Show results for. I searched for Hyperlight Drifter, and it was like, you're talking about Hyperlight Breaker?
This is what you want, right? No, hell no. It's what I typed. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. So it was this top-down. It was a very kind of Zelda, but a really fast-paced kind of twin stick
like Robotron Zelda thing.
Yeah, it was very unforgiving. So it's difficult, but a lot of people really enjoyed it, and they've been for years and years kind of waiting to see what was going to come next. And it's this Hyperlight Breaker that's going into early access. So yeah. We got the Faybreak trailer for Pal World. This is a new continent, new pals, new weapons, and new like camp stuff. I was actually just surprised when I watched this to see. I feel like Pal World looks a lot better now than it did when I played it in January of 2024. Like the lighting engine seems a lot better, and the anti-aliasing seems like it's like rubbing some of the harder edges off, and the pals still look great.
They don't want me to say this, but it looks exactly like Pokemon. It looks fantastic. Actually, it looks better than Pokemon because Pokemon games look like ass.
Well, there is that. Yes, put out Pokemon games on the PC. I don't know. Maybe I'll play them then. But yeah, this looks really good. Like it looks like they're putting in the work, which is nice to see because Pocket Pair could have honestly just taken the money and run.
Because they're getting sued right now, right? So
yeah, but when I looked into that case, and like Nintendo is suing them for, I think what they're asking for comes out to about $75,000 total, which is like nothing. Yeah, like it's weird. Like I don't know if they're trying to set a precedent to like they want the damages, but then they also want them to shut down Pal World, but that wasn't part of the ask in the settlement. So it's unclear to me what Nintendo's doing, and a lot of it is, I think, wrapped up in the way the Japanese legal system works and things I just don't understand.
Is it basically just like you have to show that you're trying to sue them, but you're not going to actively take the negative publicity by trying to take it down, but you still have to do the act or some shit? Like, that's weird.
Possibly. I don't know. There's like, do you know what doujinshi are? It's like... basically in Japan, if you make something, if you make like say I'm going to make my own Dragon Ball comic and then I'm going to put it out in Japan, is that you won't get immediately like sued unless you start selling your own Dragon Ball comic. So like there's actually a precedent in Japan where like their parody stuff is a lot stronger, where they don't immediately jump up your ass for doing a thing. And so I think that part of it is the fact that like Pal World is so much is like right on the other side of the line where it's not a slam dunk, and the last thing that Nintendo wants is to actually
it's a frivolous lawsuit. Yeah.
Well, so potentially they could lose, right? They could make it, but then on the other hand, there are a few other games out there like Temtem. There are a few other Pokemon style games where it's basically Pokemon, but everything is changed enough that then could get caught up in this. So I don't know. I'm still not entirely sure what Nintendo's rationale is with what they're doing, but Power looks great, and I don't know. Maybe give it another shot at some point. So
hell yeah, take your pals, go to Pal Worlds.
I'm skipping that one. How about a blast from the past?
Where in the world are we, Jeff?
We got a pre-order trailer for Carmen Sandiego. Somebody called.
Remember that old school TV show where they had like the boppers, like bop bop bop.
Yep. I was just about to make a rockapella joke. That was rockapella coming out to do the Carmen Sandiego song.
Oh yeah, let's go
with the chief and with all that stuff. Strangely, this is, I think, a spinoff of the Netflix series where Carmen Sandiego is now helping to catch criminals as opposed to being the criminal, which I'm very torn on because on the one hand, yes, I know that everybody of a certain age is like weirdly attracted to Carmen Sandiego, and so having her be like a total shit bad guy is probably not the best thing to do. But on the other hand, that outfit is just made for crime. She got a big hat.
Should we also have Waldo find other people? No, we shouldn't be changing characters and their traits.
Yeah, but this looks like it's a very basic. I think this is from the Microids, who has been doing these like very small games where it's like, little, here's the hang gliding level, here's the grappling hook level, but you still got to figure out where the guy went, and then you got to put him in the jail. Sure.
Oh, it's a Netflix game. I mean, this is going to be basic, simple.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, it's Gameloft. Gameloft Brisbane, no less. So like a very Australian game. So
Brisbane.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Speaking of cute stuff, we got the release of a game called Chocolate Factory Simulator. We didn't have that many trailers this week, y'all. So I
don't you trounce on Chocolate Factory Simulator. This looks delicious.
It's like a steampunk chocolatier game where you make your chocolate and you have a little clockwork robot guy that helps you out to do stuff. You've got to like mix the ingredients, and you've got to buy supplies and upgrade your little chocolate place, and then at the end you actually get to design like the look and the packaging and everything of what the candy that you're making looks like, and then you like ship it off on an airship so that all the other people with the goggles on their fedora can have a tasty bite of chocolate. So
that's so cool. You can, they have little like helpers too, and then it's just Oompa. This is Willy Wonka. This is just Willy Wonka game, isn't it?
Pretty much like but it's kind of nice that you can do all the customization stuff, which is pretty cool. But
this just makes me want to eat chocolate. Damn it.
Man, I got this giant, my parents gave me a big chocolate Santa for Christmas. It's just nothing but pure chocolate. And I'm like, I got to pick the right time, because once this thing gets opened, I'm not eating half a Santa. I'm eating the whole fucking thing. So
actually, now that you say that, when I went to Target trying to do like Christmas shopping, they have a candy aisle, which actually I get very excited by now when it comes to the holiday season, because that candy aisle is filled with the craziest shit. Why would you want a yard of Twix? An entire football yard. Like,
what?
Huge. Yeah, like they were selling candy bars, like an entire yard's worth, like Snickers and Twix. Yes.
1 yard of Twix. A whole yard of Twix.
I'm not even joking when I was just...
What the hell?
I was in awe.
What in the world? That's crazy. 18 full-size Twix bars. Oh wait, so it's not.
And this is okay. Okay, so hang on a second. This is different because it was actually one. Look up the giant Snickers bar.
Okay,
that one is a different. That one's probably better suited.
So because this is just a bunch of back-to-back Twixes. This is,
oh my god, it's fake.
You thought it was one giant bar.
One giant thing. No.
I'm so sorry. Also, why does Snickers.com
why does Snickers care if you're human?
Make me go through Cloudflare. Snickers yard individually wrapped milk chocolate bars, so you get 18 Snickers bars in a yard.
Come on, if you just look at the box, it looks like it's a giant Snickers bar.
It really does. It really does. Fake. It's a fake.
It's fake. Oh, man. Imagine if I actually bought that for myself because I'm a fatty, and then I open it and I'm like, well, I don't want 18 individual Twixes. I want one giant one.
Wait until Christmas, get everybody there, and you're like, all right, family, gather around. We're all going to eat this giant Snick. Oh, man.
And then for some reason, I just put them all on like a table, just like lined out. And I'm like, I'm still eating them all. And then I push them into my mouth.
One at a time. Yeah. Let's see.
But yeah, get the chocolate game. Yeah, sorry to derail that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. We got plenty of time. And then last, we got a full gameplay trailer for the Game of Thrones King's Road game that they announced at the Game Awards last year. This looks very much like a kind of a God of War, like kind of third-person action adventure game, but it is worth remembering to everybody that this is a fucking phone game. It is going to be also on the PC, but it is obviously, like when you look at it, it looks okay. But then when you're watching the combat happen, you start to notice like, oh, this is where you would swipe in the direction of the guy that you want to fight, or here's the little quick time event.
Looks so on rails, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and what the sad part about it is that like it almost looks like the Witcher, right? But like a Game of Thrones Witcher game. You're like, oh, I would play that if you guys made like an in-depth RPG set in Game of Thrones that I could play. But like, nah, So don't be fooled. Don't be fooled when you see Kings Road. That's a fucking phone game.
Kings Road on the road.
They also have a beta test that's coming out. So January 16th through the 22nd, you can get in on that beta if you want. But you don't want to. Trust me.
Nah.
Let's see. In other news, we got the news that OG Diablo is going to get put on Game Pass pretty soon. Which is
that's
good.
fun.
Yeah,
Diablo's fun. Path of Exile has made me appreciate Diablo, Diablo 1 and 2 more.
Yeah.
Because I think that the dark elements of those games and the way that those games, I grew up on those games, so I always love being able to dive back into the OG and Diablo 2. Hopefully that might already be on Game Pass, but
I don't think so yet, but I know that January 14th you'll be able to play the original Diablo, which should very much be possible for everyone because there's literally a website you can go to play Diablo in a web browser. So, Diablo is not that... Diablo is made for
hard to get
486s, right? Like, you could play Diablo. It doesn't matter. You can play it on your phone. You can play it on your computer. You can play it on your refrigerator, probably. They also are bringing in to Game Pass January 8th Rolling Hills, Robin Hood Sherwood Builders, My Time at Sandrock, and Lightyear Frontier. So a bunch of kind of cozy games. I thought Rolling Hills was already on Game Pass. Or did I buy that? Nope. Okay. I really enjoyed that. It was about you play as a little robot that goes to this town and you open a sushi restaurant in this town.
That's cool.
You open a little robot sushi restaurant. You put little hats and stuff on the robot, and you can customize.
This looks way better than Game of Thrones.
Yeah. I'd rather play Rolling Hill, make sushi, make friends than Game of Thrones, to be honest. So, very cute.
Make sushi, not war.
Yeah. Let's see. And then on the other side, on the PlayStation Plus, we got the news that 1 year after its release, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is on PS Plus this month. I
pass.
I think I know nobody likes it when I say this. I think people should install and try this game. As long as the premise doesn't make you mad. Trust me, the end game part where they want you to grind, I didn't like that part. But just playing the game, it was fun, man. Like, they did an interesting job of taking the Arkham combat. Like, they have this whole interrupt system where you can see if an enemy's going to shoot you. If you shoot him with the right thing, then you can do like a counterattack. It wasn't the worst game I've ever played in my life, especially if you already are paying for PS Plus. Why not try it for 10 minutes and be like, no, Jeff is stupid. And then I could be like, okay, well, at least you tried it. So, yeah.
Jeff makes me try everything. I hate him.
Yeah.
Why do I still listen?
Yeah. What else is on there?
Temtem, It Takes Two. It Takes Two is actually, that was up for Game of the Year 1 year, right? So
as long as we say 2024. Oh, that was December. In January, wait. Suicide Squad Justice League, Need for Speed, Hot Pursuit Remastered, and also, that's the other thing. Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. Everyone should play Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. Stanley Parable itself was a very good game. Ultra Deluxe took it and went fucking crazy with it in a way that I cannot describe. Have you ever played Stanley Parable, Blake?
I haven't.
Stanley Parable is a wonderful game where you are a guy named Stanley that works in an office, and there is a narrator that is narrating what's happening over you and is trying to tell you what to do, and you can listen to what the narrator's saying, or you can go off and do your own thing, and the narrator will comment on it. The narrator's voice is incredible. Michael and I did a full playthrough of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe because we did 2 parts of it, and we were like, fuck this, impromptu sequential, because I'm not going to stop playing this, and it's amazing. So
that's great. I'll check that out.
Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. It's also only 4 or 5 hours. It's not that long. So, but yeah. Let's see. Sony also announced the Midnight Black Collection, which is a new series of peripherals that are all black. There was already a black DualShock 5. This is the PS Portal, the little remote play one. They've got a black version of that. The Bluetooth headphones, the 5.1 headset, or 7.1 or whatever it is, the big Pulse Elite wireless headset, and then the PS Pro, the Pro controller that has the back buttons and the sticks and stuff that you could swap out. All that stuff is going to come in black, which would be interesting.
Kind of a sucker for, because I like all black slick. I mean, I have a all black car, so I like that.
Yeah. Here's the problem. I bought the black DualShock 5 controller because I bought a black panel for my PS5. I bought the D brand PS5 shell, and so the whole PS5 was black. Then I got a PS5 Pro, and it's white, and they don't make replacement panels for it. So I had to switch back to the white controller because the controller must match the console. I'm not going to have a black controller and a white console. That's
I don't think you had an N64, but I can only imagine your brain explode when you're like, what do you mean that there's like 50 million different colors for controllers and I could put all of them on my single black N64?
I do. I mean, I also have a purple PS5 controller, but I don't use it as my primary. I don't know. For some reason, I want it to match. I want it to match when it's sitting here on my desk. I don't want it to be two-tone. I want everything to be the same color. So.
What is this two-tone bullshit?
Yeah. Anyway, all that stuff is coming, I believe, in February. January 16th. January 16th is going on pre-order, and February 20th is when it ships. So, give me the plates. I want the plates for my PS5 Pro. Assholes.
Give them the plastic plates.
Let's see. We also got the, speaking of PlayStation, we got the release date for The Last of Us Season 2. The Last of Us Season 2, the show, not the game.
Not the actual game, yeah.
And this is interesting because I think this is the first time that we saw the woman that's playing Abby from The Last of Us. And, like, I didn't watch The Last of Us because I'm just not as much of a fan of that franchise as everybody else in the world is. But, like, I did play The Last of Us 1 and 2. Did you play Last of Us 2?
I didn't play Last of Us 1. I haven't played Last of Us at all. But it's okay. You can spoil it. It's not a big deal.
No. I mean, like, I'm not going there. It's just that, like, this lady looks a lot like the lady that's playing Ellie in The Last of Us. And The Last of Us 2 is very much a story about this lady and Ellie kind of having, like, the reasons to fight each other. And in the game, Abby is blonde, and she is, like, just built. She is like, she's very muscular, and so it's like a big it's a big contrast, right, between Abby and Ellie. So here, Abby, Last of Us. So this is what she looks like in the game. And she's very muscular, and she's blonde, and she's very kind of imposing, as opposed to Ellie, who's very just kind of like a regular looking person. And then in the trailer for this, she looks very, just regular person, brunette person. And I'm like, oh, well, okay, all right. I guess if you guys want two brunettes fighting each other, two vaguely similar looking brunette people fighting each other, then I guess that's fine. But also, it should be noted that The Last of Us Part 2 is going to be divided into multiple sequences and probably will not take place in the same order that the game took place in, because that would be weird, and if you've played the game, you know why. But we also got the release date that it's coming out in April of this year. So for everybody that liked the first one, boom, there you go. Let's see. From there, we just got a bunch of fun stuff. Part of this is funny, there's actually a second story to go along with this, but part of the thing with Lego where you could submit your own Lego designs and then they'll decide whether they want to put them into full operation. Somebody submitted a PS2 that's about the size of a regular PS2. It's got a controller that plugs into the controller port. It's got a memory card, and then on the inside it's got a bunch of like chips. Like, it looks like, I don't know why, but I guess most people have opened their PS2 at some point,
so they know what it looks like.
Yeah, because like they have the same color board that's in there, and they even made, the person who made this even went as far as putting like labels on the SoCs, like on the individual chips, to make them look like the actual individual chips with like the warning labels and stuff. So, and the little,
that's awesome,
optical drive comes out.
I hate this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
Because I went and I go into Target all the time. And there is some nostalgia about seeing a box that is the Xbox 360 box, and then seeing it exactly as it existed. And you look at it and you go, oh my God, it's a Xbox 360 brand new, and I'm buying this. Like, why? Like, in your head, you're just like, go. And then you realize it's fucking Lego. right? Like I don't know, maybe it's not Lego, but there is a Xbox 360 Connect Lego whatever that literally they sell at Target in the video game section, and it is strictly just an entirely made it's like Lego. Like you could literally just put Lego and it'll be there. Yeah, we're looking it up right now. I think that's where like it hit me, because I'm like, all I'm gonna see now. There you go.
Mega. It's a mega.
All I'm gonna see now is PS2 boxes, and I'm gonna be so mad that I can't buy it and actually like have a PS2 again.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what though. As we were getting ready to record this, there was an announcement that Nintendo and Lego, they are making a Lego Game Boy. Like they made that Lego NES. So October of this year, they're going to be putting out a Lego Game Boy. They showed a teaser with nothing. All it had was a Lego D-pad, pretty much, and then like what the buttons would look like.
Oh my god! And everybody went crazy.
Yeah. Let's see. We got there's a demo out for this Sonic Galactic, which is a fully built custom Sonic the Hedgehog sequel made by a bunch of modders that kind of it has the idea of like, well, what would have happened if Sonic had continued and then been like a Sega Saturn or Dreamcast game. So like utilizing some more 3D elements, and they added in Fang the Sniper. It was from a different game, and a new character called Tunnel the Mole, which is a wholly original. And yeah, it looks like a fucking Sonic game. And apparently there's like a demo out that you can get that you can try playing right now. And they've gone to all this length to basically just make the Sonic games they always wanted. Whether it will continue to exist is a question.
Sega's like looking over there going, when you release it and maybe you get some money, maybe we just hire you and just destroy this project.
Possibly. I don't know. But it looks like a Sonic-ass Sonic game. So, I don't know. Yeah, go check it out. Sonic Galactic. We also, speaking of Sonic, it turns out, Blake, that for the Sonic 3 movie, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the Build-A-Bear Workshop had a Shadow the Hedgehog bear that you could get from them. And apparently it was like $35 at the store, and they're now selling for like up to like $500 on eBay. But a lot of this is because they sold out immediately, and Build-A-Bear was like, no, we're not making any more. You can't buy them on the website. We're not going to restock them. We're not making any more of them. The only place that you can look is a secondary market. So people are now selling this $35 Shadow the Hedgehog plush for $600 on eBay. And it's like, of all the things that scalpers could get a hold of, the Shadow the Hedgehog Build-A-Bear was not on my fucking bingo card for 2025. So,
and I mean, like, you can tell, like, too, with the listings, like, 100%, 0%. Like,
yep.
You know what I mean? These people are just driving over to the stores and trying to grab all this shit.
Yep.
It's terrible. Come on, people. This is for kids.
Yep. And last but not least, Blake, I have a bunch of stuff just to specifically tickle your fancies. There were two projects.
Sad thing is that I already know about this, which is great.
There were two Gundam projects that were announced. One of them is the official Gundam Assemble TCG. That, you know, they put out a trailer for it where it's literally a bunch of people playing a trading card game with Gundam. It's funny because I thought to myself, well, if there was something that could get me into a TCG, it might be Gundam. And I was like, yes. Now, do I want to do that? No, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I don't see you doing that. And I think, you know, what's cool is I do watch Moist Critical, and I do check out his channel a lot. And they have a TCG channel, kind of what's called Skill Check. And they did get invited to go to the Gundam card game launch at NASA, actually, in Houston, which was really cool. They actually launched the game with a bunch of content creators at NASA. And they tried to explain it. And, you know, I think TCG and a lot of these other things, it really kind of comes down to, is this game going to be around in 5 years?
Yeah.
I think a lot of it kind of, you're going to put a lot of money into TCGs, right? Like, that's typically how you play. You want to get the cards that you can play with and be the best and blah, blah, blah. But a lot of these games, they come and they go, right? The only ones that stick around are Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, and the hot thing right now is Lorcana. Star Wars was very big last year, but I don't know if that's going to keep going on. But it's one of those things. I will play this game if it exists for a long time. It's always a flash in the pan, and then they just don't support it afterwards. So it's a game that's going to add elements of, you have pilots, you have bases. You're trying to take out the other guy's base, and then you can take him out. And there's a lot of cool little archetypes that they're doing with this. But the One Piece game has also been very successful as well with the TCG elements. So I think it's just the next thing. Bandai is a very interesting company when it comes to supporting their products. So I don't know. It looks cool. I'll tell you that. It does have a cool look for their cards, and I'm curious to see. Maybe I'll pick up a booster pack or whatever. So,
well, what I'll say is that unlike a lot of other things, Gundam, I feel like, is one of those things that falls into the category of, like, if you put something out with Gundam on it, everybody will buy it. So you will get a pretty large install base by default. And then the other thing that Gundam really has that you've seen in a lot of the projects that they've done is that there are so many of them, because there's like 50 years of shows that, like, oh, do we need a new thing? Let's do Turn A Gundam cards for, like, you could just do one series a season for the next 6 years. And by the time you got to the end of that, you would have 3 new seasons of things to do. There's that new one. Do you know about the new Gundam that's got the crazy name?
I haven't heard the new Gundam. I know the last Gundam was, Requiem for...
No. This is wrong.
That's the movie.
Anime weird name. Yeah. Gundam GQUX. That's the next one. That's the next Gundam.
Injected into my veins. I don't understand it, but I don't need to.
Yeah. So and then the people that like Gundam, like, you could rope them in and keep them buying the stuff for a long time. But then also part of this is the fact that they're also hooking this same thing into Gundam Assemble, which is basically like a little miniatures game that you play on a little mat, and then you can go through and you have different, like, different stuff. But what's interesting is, I don't know if you caught it in the other trailer, is that the little mechs for this are like mini Gunpla. So they come on a blister sheet, and they're like 8 pieces, and you put them together and then you paint them. So they do have kind of like a Warhammer element to it as well. Which is kind of interesting, where they're trying to kind of take that same idea about trying to take the things that people like about Gunpla and then make like a kind of like a Hero Clicks or something like that out of it, where you build these little guys and then you put them together and paint them, and then you feel like attached to them because they're your little guy that you made, and they look nice too. They're like really nice little miniatures. So
they look sick. I don't know. Yeah, I'll let this one fester a little bit, but I don't know. Maybe they get me. Maybe they get me on this one.
Fair enough. And yeah, that's it. We're a little bit over time this week, but hey, we got through a lot. So, Blake, before we wrap it up, why don't you tell the fine folks of the internet where they can find you when you're not over here? Help me go over all the gaming news there is to go over.
You can go over to patreon.com/junkfoodcinema. We do a lot of fun things over there in that Discord. We just wrapped up our canon watch through. We just wrapped up 12 Days of Christmas, which was great. We watched all fun movies that we all love. Just come on over, say hello, and make sure you subscribe to RageSelect as well. So you get the best of both worlds.
There you go. Patreon.com/RageSelect. That's where you can go. And yeah, that's it. First podcast of 2025. Only 51 more to go until I can rest again.
This one was the best of 2025 so far. For sure.
You got to remember that when the awards come out at the end of the year. Best podcast of 2025. Blake and Jeff, first week of 2025. So there you
Let's go.
All right. Bye, everybody. Bye.